Good afternoon, good evening. It's Friday the 13th, Awesemo NBA Deeper Dive. I'm Rinpack alongside Ship My Money to talk about a pair of game sixes in the NBA playoffs. Adam, how are you doing today?
Doing pretty well. Looking forward to doing a show with you. It's been a long time.
Yeah, it's been quite some time. Yeah, right. Likewise to you. It being Friday the 13th, I do have a question for you. Do you have any superstitions while playing DFS or any things that are give you like you think good luck, bad luck?
No, not really. Yeah, not that I can think of.
Yeah, as a kid, when I was like a diehard Pistons fan, like the Pistons would go on a run, I'd stay in one spot, and if things would go back, I'd switch seats like that. But as I've gotten older, I've let those things go. But I'm sure there are some superstitions that are out there. I'm sure Chad has probably has some wild ones. I
Yeah, for
definitely,
sure. I know, like, obviously coincidentally, but like I think I've only had, or at the time I'd only had duck like twice in my life, and both times I happened to like win a tournament. But then since then I've had duck and not one, so that one ended.
yeah, no, I'm sure it's a fascinating thing to think about it psychologically. But it's Friday the 13th. Two of the more obviously the best series I think up in the playoffs so far in Boston, Milwaukee is facing off tonight, and then we got Memphis trying to come back from 3-1. But it's been an interesting NBA playoff DFS season for me so far. Kind of up and down the swings, mainly bad than good, but always there's enough to make it up for you in one night. But how have you dealt with the NBA playoffs? Anything that you've noticed series by series? Anything that you incorporate in your strategy?
I so one mistake that I think I've been making is not so much on this set of games, but on the other set of games. I think I've just been going two stars and scrubs, and kind of forcing in Luka, which it's great getting to Luka, but the cheap value in the postseason typically just isn't going to be there because guys or teams are playing tighter rotations. This set of games, though, it's a bit different because you just have you still have value from Memphis. It's closing a bit, but still some really cheap guys on Memphis, at least compared to where they should be. So it's not so much an adjustment that I think I need to make on this set of games.
Yeah, and one thing that I've noticed is just looking back at small sample size, my results have definitely gotten better as the series has gone along, as I like get more information on how coaches handle things. And the recency bias is an all-time high in NBA playoffs. 2 or 3 years ago, it was much easier because the ownership would be even more like concentrated towards the quote unquote bad plays. But now everyone's just using data not inside night in and night out that the ownership's pretty sharp more times than not, it feels like. But we'll see. We'll talk about this Boston game, Milwaukee game. But any other final thoughts about strategy? Any advice for the chat that going into this game six you think would be helpful?
I do agree with you that I don't think we've seen quite as much recency bias as we used to in the past.
Yeah, which is as guys we probably take this a lot more seriously than a lot of people who are watching. It's unfortunate. Recency bias is one of the places where we try to find edge, and like, man, if the field's getting sharper, that just makes it a lot more difficult to succeed in this night in night out. But in terms of free content, check out our NBA projections. Definitely going to be very beneficial for you to building strong lineups tonight. But let's get to it. Boston taking on Milwaukee. Boston is 1.5 dogs at Milwaukee. Last two games, both the home teams kind of collapsed in the fourth quarter. Both gave away their games, and then now Milwaukee in a closeout game in a hell of a sequence by Jrue Holiday. It was just like one of those epic defensive sequences. Did you get to see that sequence in the fourth quarter?
I saw the block.
Did you see the steal?
No.
Oh, you didn't see the game-saving steal? Yeah, it was like one of those. It was just like Jrue Holiday just cementing himself as probably the best guard defender in the league.
I remember when that was a hot take a couple of years ago that he was like a lockdown defender.
So yeah, I also surprised that people thought it was a hot take, but in NBA interviews, all like the star players have said this guy is the like hardest guy to go up against. Like even Durant has said this. Like everyone struggles going up against Jrue Holiday. His defense like is like among the players, and when the players are thinking this guy's pretty hard, he's got to be pretty fucking good, and he kind of proved it the other night. But taking a look at this, obviously, let's start on the Boston side of things. We're waiting on the Robert Williams news. My gut inclination is I think he doesn't play. I think they're fine without him. They can win without him. But Robert Williams, if he were to play, I want to stay away. He's coming in at favorable price tag at $4,900, $5,500, and $22. Do you think he plays today?
I'm with you. I lean towards him not playing. And I also agree with you, even though the price tag's pretty cheap, if he does play, it's still just difficult for me to get there. I would expect that he's playing like, 22, 23, 24 minutes if he's in, and he certainly has upside, but I just think it would be pretty tough to get to him if he's in. But I'm assuming for now that he's not playing.
Yeah, I agree with you. And so early in the series, I definitely thought he was a good play because I thought the minutes could go from the low 20s to potential high 20s. And that's a big difference for a guy like Rob Williams. But the more and more as the series developed, he really struggles against this Milwaukee matchup in a playoff setting. So I would shy away. I think they're fine without going to him. And the guy who's been entering the starting lineup for them has been Grant Williams. Grant Williams comes in 4,600, 4,000. And the man over there on Yahoo, Grant Williams is one of those guys who he thinks he's a lot better than he actually is on the court. He definitely plays with a chip on his shoulder. He's kind of in there to be the quote unquote Giannis stopper / limiter. He's done an awful job of it in the last couple of games, but I think most people would be doing. But looking at Grant Williams, 4,600, 4K. How do you feel about Grant Williams? I'm another guy. I'm not the strongest believer in Grant Williams. I'm willing to, honestly, on a 2-game slate, if I were building one lineup, he's not in it. If I were building building 150 lineups, he definitely falls in some, but not a priority by any means. How are you handling Grant Williams tonight?
Yeah, that's how I see it as well. I actually played a lot of him last slate, which I didn't expect and wasn't really intentional. I wasn't really happy with it. And then obviously him getting 3 fantasy points in 30 minutes didn't change my tune there. But the issue, I think, with Williams is that the price tag adjusted so quickly, because even before Robert Williams went out, Grant Williams was playing like 30 to 32 minutes a night. And so that price tag, increased. And then you got him the first game that he started at really, really high ownership. So it increased even more. So the problem is, even though I think you could potentially see more minutes from Williams, he played 24 2 games ago, he played about 30 last game. We haven't seen a game though where he's knocking down threes. So you could certainly get more minutes. For example, in the second quarter last game, he didn't play the final 7 minutes. But at 4,600, it's you kind of need him to play all those minutes to want to roster him at 4,600. And plenty of the time, he's only going to play 30 to 32. So it just makes it really difficult to get to him.
Yeah, definitely. In a situation like this, in a must-win game for Boston, we've also seen, with the lack of Robert Williams, Derek White picking up a ton of minutes as well. Derek White's been playing 30-plus minutes the last couple of games. Obviously gone, I think, 4 of 6, 4 of 5 from the field, and that could easily be 1 of 5 or 2 or 5, and those fantasy points don't look as appealing. But I'm looking at the minutes here and the salary. White comes in very favorably priced over there on DraftKings, comes in only at $4,000, and I'm willing to get way above the field on him over there. But on FanDuel, where he's 5K, where there's some other guys in the other games I'm willing to look at, I'm shying away. There's a huge price difference there. But I like going back to Derek White just because of the minutes. And there are multiple ways where I think he can even get more minutes where it works out for him. And 4K, he doesn't need to do much on a 2-game slate. You're pretty content with, honestly, you would love anything in the high 20s, but if he comes out and puts up even a high teens, he's not going to necessarily kill your lineup, but he can definitely just provide you that floor of getting in some studs, which are extremely valuable on 2-game slates.
Yeah, I'm with you. The price tag on DraftKings looks really good, I think, if Robert Williams is out. One thing that we saw last game rotation-wise that made me feel a little bit better about White is that you did get Grant Williams back to 30.5 minutes. Jaylen Brown played 35.5. That first game where Derek White played 34 minutes was the game where Grant Williams only played 24. Jaylen Brown was in some early foul trouble. He only played 32. So I was a little bit concerned that in the next game, you would get, Derek White at 24, 25 minutes, Grant Williams playing more, Jaylen Brown playing more. You still didn't get the 40-minute game from Jaylen Brown. And like I was saying before, you could certainly get more run from Grant Williams too. But White still got to 32 minutes there. Tice played 11, Pritchard played 9. So just getting a little bit more playing time last game from Grant Williams and from Jaylen Brown, and then White still getting north of 30 minutes, makes me feel pretty good about his playing time. And at 4K, even though he's not a great point per minute guy, he's only at about 0.75 DraftKings points per minute in this series. And I don't really expect that to change because you're certainly not running the offense through Derek White when you have Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum on the floor, not to mention Smart. But I guess I just feel, that much more confident in his playing time since we've seen it 2 games in a row now.
Yeah, and I definitely think Derek White's probably one of my top 2 or top 3 favorite value plays, and on DK for sure, not so much on FanDuel. I just think I'll take my chances with those minutes, and it wouldn't shock me if the rotation gets even more shorter, maybe potentially less Pritchard minutes in the game 6 in a must-win situation. just staying in the backcourt, Marcus Smart, who kind of just had the worst like 40 seconds of a basketball game that he could have. Smart comes in at 61, 6K. I just think this guy's going to have to be on the court of as many minutes as he can, 40 plus minutes potentially in a must-win game for him. I love Marcus Smart across the board. I like him a lot, even on FanDuel, where the ownership's pretty high. I just think this guy's going to have to play a ton of minutes. The price really hasn't gone up all series. How do you feel about Marcus Smart? And out of like, if you were to build, I guess if you're building one lineup, do you think Marcus Smart is a priority play for you?
I think he's a good play. He's not in the initial lineup I built just to kind of see roster construction, but you can see how he would fit in because, like, for example, the lineup I have, it has Tyus Jones, it has Dylan Brooks, it has Desmond Bane, 5,700, 6K, 6,200. So right in that same price range as Marcus Smart. And there's no, like, if you tell me you want to play Marcus Smart instead of Desmond Bane, sure, go for it. I don't have some sort of strong take there. Same goes for Dylan Brooks, really. So I'm with you, just expecting a lot of minutes from Smart. I thought that 2 games ago, it was really good to see Smart get north of 40 minutes because he had been banged up a little bit. His playing time had been down some, but then you got 41 minutes, you got 38 minutes, so no real reason to be concerned. And like you said, this is a must-win game. I expect him to be out there for every minute that he can.
Yeah, and I mean Marcus Smart, another solid play at only $19 on Yahoo as well. And check out OddsShopper. There's some intriguing steals props on OddsShopper coming in as one of our top props over there. So check out oddshopper.com, a very valuable resource in player prop betting. I highly recommend use it. It's been very valuable for me. Help me kind of pick up sports betting pretty quickly as it's legalized here in Michigan. Now heading into the Boston Big Three, and I'm going to have to start with Al Horford. This guy has been sensational. He kind of takes a year off and gets his legs back up under him, just goes on an epic tear in these second round playoffs. Even in the first round was great. 7,200 power forward center, 7,600 power forward center on FanDuel. I was just based off recency bias, I didn't think his efficiencies are going to be like as efficient as he was in game. Was that game 4 heading into game 5? So I was under the field on him in game 5. Now heading into game 6, I just think he's going to be going to have to play a ton of minutes. The price is appropriate. I'm completely fine going to him. How about you, Al Horford? Someone you like on Boston tonight?
Yeah, I mean, he's been great in this series, averaging 1.1 DraftKings points per minute. I'm with you. I think he plays a ton of minutes here as well. I do have the same concern that you do, though, where his true shooting percentage in this series is 68%. For the regular season, it was around 59%. So you're seeing him just shoot a lot better than normal. And it's not like he's producing fantasy points because his usage has gone up. He only has a 15% usage rate in the series. So I think that he's good. The issue I run into is that there's a lot of good mid-range plays on this slate, and then obviously you have Giannis at the top. I have a hard time saying I want to play a lot of $7,200 Al Horford when he's a little bit more expensive than Jaren Jackson. He's a lot more expensive than Draymond Green, for example, who has his own issues that we'll talk about, but that is a lot less expensive. So and then you have Holiday in the mid-range, you have Jaylen Brown for $1,000 more. So I do think that it's kind of difficult to get to Horford. Last game actually was the first game where I did get to him, and that was unfortunate. But it's not so much that I have an issue with Horford so much as I just like other guys better. And I do think that his price tag is a little inflated just because of hot shooting so far in this series.
Sure thing. And another follow-up question, we'll touch on Triple J. I think you probably agree with me here, but I think Al Horford is a much more safer play than Triple J.
I guess, like, minutes-wise, sure. I prefer Jackson.
Okay. No, I completely agree with you. I do think Triple J has a higher ceiling, but a lower floor.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah. For heading in today, but especially tonight. But it's something we'll touch on with him. I think Triple J is a great play. But if you were to choose one, if you somehow have that situation, definitely that's how I think about it. But looking at the other two guys, I mean, Tatum and Brown. These guys it's been kind of more of a Brown series, and then Tatum picked it up last game finally. I kind of still think it's more of a Brown game than Tatum game, and I like the savings. But these guys are kind of been very similar to me in this series of how they've been defended. Tatum at times is getting more of the Giannis defense, making him work a little bit more, where you're saving $1,600 on DraftKings and then $1,900 on FanDuel. It's tough for me to prefer Tatum to Brown if I were to build like a couple lineups. I'd rather have Brown in there, but I still think Tatum obviously has the greater ceiling. But I still think the savings does a lot for you on this 2-game slate where pricing is. Talk to me about Tatum and Brown, and do you have a preference towards one or the other?
I agree with you completely. I think that the $1,600 in savings ends up being huge on this slate. I think it's just going to be easier to get Giannis plus Brown into lineups than it is Giannis plus Tatum. And then also on DraftKings, Jaylen Brown has shooting guard small forward eligibility as opposed to Tatum having small forward power forward. So you do have an extra roster spot you can get Brown in as well. So far in this series, pretty similar numbers. Jaylen Brown's at 1.12 DraftKings points per minute. Tatum's at 1.09, 28% usage for Tatum, 26 for Brown. We have seen Tatum's rebounding numbers increase without Robert Williams, so that is something to keep in mind regarding Williams' status. Not that I necessarily expect that if Williams is in, that Tatum just goes back to like being completely non-existent as a rebounder, but I do like his chances of having a good rebounding game better if Robert Williams is out. So it's kind of, I guess Tatum to me is sort of similar to Horford in the respect that I like Jason Tatum and I think this price is fine, but I just think there's a lot of really underpriced guys on this slate and Tatum's not one of them.
Yeah, and I think the opportunity cost of missing out on Tatum, can he be the highest scoring player on this slate? Yeah, he just certainly has that in his bag. I'm not going to take that away from you if anyone wants to make that argument. It's just a pricing thing is where the savings and how the usage is playing out. I just think that's what I think Adam also agrees, where Brown seems you're better off going to Brown with the savings. You're saving $10 on Yahoo, obviously different positions, shooting guard, small forward for Brown and Tatum respectively. In just in terms of looking at the rotation, if no Williams, do you want to fire some shots on Daniel Tice, who played well in those limited wins fantasy wise, but I want to shy away, or Peyton Pritchard, the last two guys who might get a rotational run tonight?
I doubt that I get to them. If you're playing 150 lineups and they end up in a lineup here and there, that's fine. They certainly wouldn't be in the first, second, third lineups I build. This is just a slate where I think there's enough value elsewhere that you don't really need that. You know, if they were on the Phoenix slate, you know, and they were competing with guys like Bismack Biyombo and Cameron Payne and whoever, then yeah, sure, get to some Pritchard, get to some Tice. But here, I don't really think that they're that useful.
Definitely. And we have about 1,100 people watching. If you guys can hit the like button, that'd go a long way for Adam and I heading into this playoff slate. It's kind of heading into the conference final season. It's always sad to see the NBA season go away, but it is what it is. But talking about, I guess, wrapping up Boston before we head on to Milwaukee, but is there anything that your potential rotational change or anything that you're going to expect with no Williams? It seems I feel pretty confident that Ime Udoka is going to roll with the six guys plus Pritchard. I think Pritchard might lose some minutes, but it feels like it's a very condensed rotation with Grant Williams, Tatum, Browns, Marcus Smart, and Derek White, and Al Horford. I think there are a majority of those guys. It just seems like I don't think there's any necessary to see anyone else in the rotations.
Yeah, no, that's what I expect as well. If anything, I think the rotation just tightens a little bit. And yeah, maybe you do get, you know, Peyton Pritchard DNP or Peyton Pritchard playing 4 minutes or something like that. I think looking at the minutes they played last game, there was nothing like really unusual, but Jaylen Brown only played 35. You could very easily see him play 40 plus tonight in a must-win game. Marcus Smart could easily pick up a couple of minutes on that 38. You know, Tatum already played 42. Horford already played 41. I don't really expect more out of those guys, but there is, you know, looking at those guys, Brown and Smart in particular, it wouldn't be surprising if they each pick up a few more minutes, and it comes at the expense of, you know, Tice, Pritchard, and or possibly a little bit of Derek White.
Agreed. On to Milwaukee we go, and Milwaukee obviously coming off Giannis and Drew, the two-man show here. I think we're just going to start off with these two guys. Giannis 11-9. Looks fantastic in terms of a raw point perspective. People are getting a little shy away seeing that price tag, but Giannis has been fantastic last couple of games. Kind of just just carrying the load on his shoulders. Him and Drew Holiday coming in at 7,900. And I know it's a two-game slate. A lot of people want one or the other. In this instance, for this team, I'm fine if you land on both of these guys in your lineup. They are taking majority of the shots on this team. And if you were to tell me at the end of the night, they're going to combine to shoot 60 plus times, I can definitely see that happen. And I think the projected ownership is also falling that way. I mean, we have Giannis 11-9 projected at 64.44 fantasy points. He looks fantastic. How do you feel about Giannis? And if I were building one lineup, am I crazy to fade him today?
So, I mean, I think it goes without saying, I feel good about Giannis in terms of his projection. But the thing is that Giannis being on this slate with Memphis just makes it easy to get to him. Like in the initial lineup that I built, I obviously don't have, every player that I would like, but there's nobody in that lineup that I'm looking at and saying like, oh, I really think this is like a really risky play or something like that. So it makes it pretty easy to get to him, and that's reflected in the boom bust tool as well. We have him projected for 42% ownership with a 45% chance of being optimal. The optimal percentage, not only is telling you that Giannis clearly projects well, but it's giving you an indication that there's enough value to go around that he's showing up in the winning lineups a very, very high percentage of the time. So I'm not shying away from him at this price. He's got a 42% usage rate in the series. His production's down from where it was in the regular season. He's at 1.58 DraftKings points per minute compared to 1.7 or 1.75. And you can attribute that to the matchup. But 42% usage rate, 36.5% assist percentage. Playing time is of course up because it's the postseason, so that makes up for the slight decrease in per minute production. As far as are you crazy to fade him in one lineup? No, because you can still make a very good, very high upside lineup where, instead of having, let's say, Giannis and Kyle Anderson or something, you have Jaylen Brown and, I don't know, Jaren Jackson. So you can certainly still build some really high upside lineups, but I would expect that I have Giannis in more lineups than I don't.
No, definitely. And I think Giannis is an even better play on FanDuel where he's $12,000 just because I think it fits a lot better with the roster construction there. While Jrue Holiday, 9K here on FanDuel, a little bit more tough because he's competing with Steph Curry, who I might prefer a little bit more than him. But $7,900 on DraftKings, I love him. I think he's fantastic. He hasn't shot the ball well a lot of this series. That could easily change in one game. And I like him a lot. 7,900, he is kind of a priority play for me. I will be looking to get above the field on a guy like Jrue Holiday. How do you feel about Jrue Holiday, 7,900? It's a different story on FanDuel, but I like him a lot. And he seems to be like the 1B to the 1A of Giannis.
Yeah. And one of the things that I love to see is when a player's salary is falling, but like he's still producing at a good rate despite poor shooting. And you mentioned it with Holiday. In this series, only a 44.3% true shooting percentage. He's averaging 1.15 DraftKings points per minute. Like in the case of Horford, his rates don't really back up the production you're getting entirely because he's shooting much better than you expect. Holiday, it's the opposite. He has a 29% usage rate and a 26.5% assist percentage in this series, along with a 9.5% rebounding percentage. So he's doing a decent job rebounding as well. If he was shooting to his averages, he'd be producing even more fantasy points than he has been. But assuming he's going to play 40 minutes or so, even if he just continues to shoot poorly like he has and continues to average this 1.1 fantasy points per minute, he's still a good value at 7,900. So I think he's very underpriced here, and it makes me want to get to a lot of Jrue Holiday. And I agree with you too that there's no issue playing him and Giannis together because for one, it's a 2-game slate, so opportunity cost is relatively low anyway. But the entire offense is running through these two. The next highest usage rate after Giannis and Holiday is Portis at 20%. Nobody else in their normal rotation is above 14%. So, and then, assist percentage wise, the next highest after Giannis and Jrue is Allen at 11.5%. So you're really just talking about a 2-man offense here.
Yeah, definitely. And completely agree with you there. We got a super chat from Sean asking what that drink is. It's a Starbucks refresher with lemonade. I highly recommend it. So thank you for the super chat, $5 super chat there. But looking around here, those two guys, I like in a 2-game slate. I know a lot of people go I kind of tend to relax those rules a little bit. It's a 2-game slate. A lot of things can go haywire, and kind of hoping one of my lineups goes haywire with it and kind of falls on that combination. But based on the ownership. Now, last game, or jumping to the front court and here, last game we saw Bobby Portis close the game instead of Brook Lopez. Brook Lopez did not touch the court, I want to say, in the fourth quarter. And we saw Bobby Portis kind of like series-saving offensive rebound and put back by him. Bobby Portis has been coming off the bench. I do think they'll still go with Rolo in the starting lineup. But with that, what happened last game where they come back without Brook Lopez with him on the bench, they come back. And Bobby Portis played well enough to win him the game. I don't feel confident at all in Brook Lopez's minutes, and it makes me a little bit more interested in Bobby Portis. I don't expect the same efficiency numbers from Bobby Portis. He's a very good fantasy producer when he's on the court, but $5,200 over there on DraftKings. This Rolo Bobby Portis situationship, how are you going upon it? How do you approach it tonight?
So my main takeaway from the last game is it was nice to at least see that when Portis is playing well, he can get those minutes, because he had, seen his playing time drop off since he had moved to the bench. And then the first game that Robert Williams missed, Portis didn't play much at all, which was, of course, concerning going into the last game. So it was nice to see that, he could at least, if he's playing well, he can get those minutes. The concern for me would be that he did play a few minutes alongside Lopez, but overall they combined for about 49 minutes. So if Lopez is playing well, I still don't anticipate them running a lot of, Lopez and Portis alongside each other, and even less so if Williams is out. So that's kind of the concern for me, is I think that a lot of this is probably going to be dependent on how the game is going, how guys are playing. But at 5,200 for Portis, I think it's pretty easy to make the case for how he ends up being a winning piece again. It's just he plays well and he plays 28 minutes. He's over a fantasy point per minute guy, and at 5,200, you don't need a lot from him. On average, I would say you're probably getting like 24 minutes or so, which makes him look okay. But knowing that ceiling is there is certainly nice. And then Lopez, I think, is just a little bit more difficult to get to because he has the same playing time concerns as Portis. Like, I would certainly project him for several more minutes, give like 28 minutes or so from Lopez on average. But he still, as we saw last game, can certainly be replaced by Portis in any individual game. But the issue that makes me like Portis more than Lopez is that Lopez isn't nearly as good a point per minute guy. He's at 0.83 DraftKings points per minute in this series. But, just in general in this series and just during the regular season, not as good a point per minute guy as Portis. So it's kind of, with Lopez, you need the minutes to be there, and then you also need him to produce at a higher rate than he normally does. Like, if you project Lopez for 28 to 30 minutes, he still doesn't look great at his price. If you project Portis for 28 to 30, he looks fantastic. So it's just with Portis, you need the minutes to get there, to be there. The production is going to be there. With Lopez, it's like you kind of need to hit on both angles.
Yeah, and Brook Lopez taking up a center spot, 4,800. He's competing against Steven Adams, who Steven Adams has played really well, and priced similarly. But can Lopez get there off of 4 or 5 made threes and kind of an outlier rebounding game? Sure, it can definitely happen. I'm not going to take that away, but it seems less likely than less likely to happen in today's game than it felt like it were to happen in games 1 through 3. I definitely don't play low. I don't think I fall on Lopez if I'm building like 5 lineups. Maybe if I play 150, I'll fall on some of him, but not like an extraordinary amount. If I were to fall under the field, it might seem like that. Now, another situation that's developed in this series has been the Wesley Matthews, Grayson Allen, Pat Connaughton minutes coming around. Pat Connaughton has now he would have closed the game at home in game 4 if he got nicked up towards the end. He got hurt, but he closed game 5. Pat Connaughton comes in at 4,400, and he might play high 30s minutes today. And I like him a decent amount. And I think I prefer spending up to Connaughton than I do to Allen and Wesley Matthews. I know it's a big price difference, but the ownership right as of now is going towards more Allen. But I think if I were to have to pick one, I'm playing Connaughton. I'm going to find a way to get up to Connaughton.
Yeah, same answer for me. I've been really interested in the ownership between Connaughton and Allen in particular in this series because they're typically similarly priced. And even today, Connaughton's more expensive, but it's only by $600. That's not that difficult to find. And you were seeing previously when Connaughton was really cheap, you were, I think deservedly so, seeing more ownership go to Connaughton. But I think even though Connaughton, was the better play, it swung a little bit too far where he was getting, 2-3 times the ownership of Grayson Allen. But now with that gap, you're seeing more ownership go to Allen. I think they project similarly, but Connaughton does project a bit better. I agree with you that on average, I expect him to play at least an extra minute or 2 more than Allen, just based on the rotations that we've seen so far. He's a better point per minute guy. In this series, Allen only has a 10.8% usage rate. He's averaged half a fantasy point per minute. Connaughton's been more in line with his normal production, 0.72 DraftKings points per minute, 13.5% usage rate. So with Allen, certainly if he gets hot like he was in, I guess it was the last series, he's going to get up more shots and potentially get more playing time, but the field's already there. And so I do prefer getting to Connaughton if you can, just because he's getting less ownership and I think is the better play anyway.
Yeah, and it's kind of a salary relief play. I know 4,400, it doesn't sound like salary relief like it does in the regular season, but it's just I'm going to just rely on those minutes, and I'm hoping for a couple made threes and some extra rebounds from him, and hopefully he finds a way to get there for me. And I think the minutes seem pretty safe. How do you feel about Allen and Matthews? They're fine to fall on if you're building 150 lineups, or if you're even building 20 lineups, you fall on some of them. But I'm not that excited about any of those two guys by a ridiculous amount. Maybe I prefer Allen to Matthews because Matthews just seems to be 3-point dependent, and you're not going to get much else, even though he's playing exceptional real life good defense. But Allen and Matthews, do you have a preference? And I just don't feel that confident with them.
Yeah, I don't either. I prefer Allen over Matthews just because he is the better fantasy guy. Matthews, on average, probably plays a few more minutes than Allen, coming off of a 36-minute game. But prior to that, he played 29, 32, 30. So the minutes are still somewhat volatile. But Matthews is just someone that, during the regular season, he's a half fantasy point per minute guy. So far in this series, he's a half fantasy point per minute guy. Allen has been a half fantasy point per minute guy in this series as well, but really he's, 0.7 fantasy points per minute, give or take. So at similar prices, I do prefer getting to Allen. Certainly don't feel good about getting to either one, but I'll get to Allen before I get to Matthews.
Yeah, and it feels they are gross plays, and as ridiculous as it sounds, gross plays win tournaments, as we saw like the Shake Milton Max Strus pairing win people the money yesterday, I think. And it's possible where you can still win a lot of money. Yesterday, Danny Green was in the winning lineup with 100K, which shows that you can still find a way to get there, even though things can go pretty south on a 2-game slate. So keep an eye on that. You don't need to get all that ridiculously cute on these 2-game slates to separate yourself from the field. But rounding it up, any interest in firing some shots on George Hill? I only mentioned him because he's the min 3K, and that has some merit, but it's a gross play.
Yeah, I think it's kind of the same answer for me as like Daniel Tice and Peyton Pritchard. If this were the other slate, then maybe. But 22 minutes 2 games ago was nice. 12 minutes last game. If he lands in a lineup out of 150 or whatever, then sure. But if he doesn't, I'm not upset about that either.
Yeah, and it's just a salary relief to potentially, if you want to jam in a lineup with Giannis, Steph Curry, and Jaren Jackson Jr. And Tatum. Maybe he helps you do that. I don't even know if that's mathematically possible. If I did that in my head, you have to play some other scrubs. But any final thoughts on this game before we round up heading into the next game?
Nope.
Oh man, Anthony with the 199 super chat. We got a 3v3 Tatum, Brown, Bane, or Giannis, Portis, Triple J, DraftKings Cash. I will go with the Giannis Triple J side. And Portis on the DK Cash. Honestly, you should check out our free content, free projections. You could easily just use your calculator and add those 3 points up and go with the higher one. But I would assume the Giannis Triple J Portis side is higher.
Yeah. So in Cash, the Giannis side, like I would not play Cash without Giannis. I think you probably can find a better spot than Portis, just given the volatility in his minutes. If you can't, that's fine. But getting Giannis in would be a huge priority for me.
Robert Williams is out, so keep an eye on projections to update. That's per Andrew Lopez, so he's a verified beat reporter, so there's still some pain there. But Robert Williams is out. We've already touched on those situations. If you guys are just joining us, feel free to rewind a little bit and catch up on 1.5x speed, as me and Adam are probably one of the faster speakers around. So you'll definitely hear us break that down quick. On to the next game we go. Make sure to check out oddshopper.com. Best player prop bets, line shop a little bit, find the best value on your bets. On to Memphis taking on Golden State. Memphis blew the doors off this Warriors team the other night. They're still 8-point dogs at San Francisco, a total of 217. 5.5 greater total than the first game for those who are keeping track at home. But let's start on the Memphis side of things. We got a tough game in terms of DFS-wise. Blowouts are not that fun on short slates at all. But we still saw Jaren Jackson Jr. and Tyus Jones kind of take us to the promised land as they are continuing to play exceptional basketball to the point where, man, it's almost been like a third of a season, and this Memphis team might be just damn better without John Morant. I just don't know.
I think they're different. I think it just speaks to how good the team is as a whole. I mean, like Tyus Jones is a very good backup. And yeah, they just play differently. I mean, I still think like if they were in the finals, you absolutely want John Morant playing.
Yeah. You want isolation players in the playoffs, guys who can get their own shot at any given moment. Bob Voulgaris has said Memphis just has a bunch of like spreadsheet guys who are just like exceptional analytic players, and it's proven. And they're proving it right now. They're just playing outstanding depth basketball. And it's been pretty amazing to see how they just blow out like an all-time team, honestly.
Yeah, I do think that they get absolutely stomped today, though.
Yeah, baby. Yeah, I mean,
if you're a Memphis fan, seeing Steph Curry and Draymond dancing to whoop that trick at the end of that game is not what you wanted to see, I don't think.
no, definitely not. And it's just like, I mean, I've grown to like enjoy Draymond off the court because he's so vocal and like outspoken about how he handles things, but he's really annoying to watch on the court as like his antics with referees. But man, that was pretty funny to see like Draymond Green just dance to that.
Yeah.
But Tyus Jones and Jaren Jackson Jr.'s, they look like amazing plays again. They're not priced high enough. I think they're honestly $1,300 too cheap, respectively. And on DraftKings, that is. On FanDuel, they're priced a little bit more appropriately. Jaren Jackson could be a little bit more expensive, but 79 and 72 for Triple J and Tyus Jones. I love them on DraftKings, and I think you do too. Why are they priority plays for you if they are?
Yeah, I mean, Jones, I think, is just still underpriced. You know, it's a situation where, yes, he's like $2,300 more expensive than he was 2 games ago, but you can't look at it that way when he was just so wildly underpriced in that first game. The salary still really hasn't caught up to where he should be. During the regular season, he averaged about 0.96 DraftKings points per minute in the games he started without Morant. I think it was 23 total, so it's not like we're talking about, you know, some small sample. And you know, he's just good, and he's going to likely give you 36 plus minutes here. Only played 24 last game and did lose, even in the first half, you know, only played like 16 minutes or so. But I feel pretty comfortable that he's playing 36, give or take, you know, possibly more here. So 5,700 looks, I think, very good for him. And then Jaren Jackson, they just need him offensively without John Morant. He's done a good job in this series of not fouling. It's really difficult to predict, you know, any one game if somebody's going to get into foul trouble, especially when you're talking about Jaren Jackson. Well, I guess it's normally easy to predict because it always happens, but he certainly.
I'm going to interrupt you there. So his foul rate is significantly lower when he's sharing the court with Steven Adams.
That's interesting.
Significantly lower. When he's not forced to play the 5, he fouls at a significantly lower rate, and it's kind of proven in the small 2 games last. But it's like a proven data point.
Yeah. And then also, I mean, this Golden State team just isn't the type of team that you would expect him to get in foul trouble against. Like, they're not getting to the rim a ton. They're shooting outside. They're not banging down low. So I think all of that sets up well for Jackson. But it's also a situation where, like, even if he does get in some early foul trouble, I would expect them to try and let him play through it, because the alternative is not playing him and getting knocked out of the playoffs. So, like, they need him offensively. You expect the usage rate to be in the upper 20s, low 30s. I prefer him over somebody like Horford at that price range just because of the usage mostly. He, I think, gives you, I guess, like, you can't even say a higher ceiling with how good Horford's been in this series. But
I think Triple J has a higher ceiling. I think there's greater 3-point upside, especially on FanDuel where Triple J has a great steals and block rate.
Right.
It's just going to come down to the foul trouble. If he stays out of those 2 for like first quarter fouls, he should be fine, hopefully. But we got another super chat from Arturo saying, would you play Triple J and Adams together? I'm completely fine doing that because of how cheap Adams is on DraftKings. On FanDuel, yeah, I think it's fine. I think we can expect Adams to play mid to high 20s minutes, if not low 30s, because of how well he's been playing since he's been reinserted in the starting lineup. Do you have any objections to that?
Nope.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, on 2-game slates in general, I don't care too much about like who I'm playing together, just because the opportunity cost is so low. But those two both project fine, you know, regardless of one another.
Yeah. So another super chat, $4.99 super chat from Bruce Booth. Top 3 must-have plays in FanDuel tournaments. It's tough to say must-have plays on FanDuel, but I would definitely go with Giannis over there on FanDuel, and just taking a look at. I'll give you a peek inside the boom bust probability over there on FanDuel. Other guys who look like good leverage plays in tournaments. If Otto Porter were to play, he looks fine to go to. And I don't mind. Steph Curry looks like a pretty solid play, as he's only $400 more than Drew Holiday. So those would be the 3 guys. Thank you for the super chat, Bruce Booth. But now let's go to the wing position of the Memphis Grizzlies. In Desmond Bane and what's his name? Dylan Brooks. Desmond Bane and Dylan Brooks. Both of these guys, it's kind of a coin flip for me now. We've seen Desmond Bane finally play without a piano on his back. He's playing a little much better in terms of looking more healthier. That is, Bane comes in at a $6,200 price tag, and Dillon Brooks is 6K on DK over there on FanDuel. I do like Brooks a lot more there because you get $500 savings, and the ownership is definitely going there. Bane and Brooks. How do you feel about these two guys?
Yeah, you kind of alluded to it with Bane, but prior to the last game, I was still playing Desmond Bane, but I was pretty down on him just because it wasn't just a matter of like, oh, he's not shooting well, maybe the injury is bothering him. He wasn't rebounding. He had like a 10% usage rate in the game without Ja. He had like a 14% usage rate overall in the postseason without Morant. So when you would expect that to be, 22, 23%, it was pretty clear that, he wasn't right and it was affecting his rates. So I am really happy to see last game he had a 24% usage rate, scored 21 actual points. So it's not so much I'm saying like, oh, Desmond Bane finally played well, now you can play him, so much as like he actually did what you would expect him to do in terms of his rates, not even caring about what he produced. So that does make me feel better about going back to him, and I think that he's just clearly underpriced here because even with the issues he's had in the postseason at 6,200, you'd still be playing him. But if now it seems like he's actually feeling better, it makes him look even easier to get to. And then Dillon Brooks, kind of the same thing where at 6K, sure, Brooks has plenty of flaws, and he is shooting horribly in this series, but he's still going to play a ton of minutes tonight, and he's still going to get up plenty of shots. He has about a 22% usage rate in the series. He's averaged 0.8 DraftKings points per minute, but he has a 32.7% true shooting percentage. He's not a very good shooter, but he's not that bad. And so, he's just someone else that hasn't produced so far to the point where you would expect him to, but the rates are there. The underlying stuff is fine. At 6K, he still looks like a great value.
Yeah, and it's tough for me to pinpoint which one would I want one if I were to play one over there on FanDuel. There's a huge ownership difference to the point where I think I'd prefer Bane to Brooks because it's a huge ownership disparity over there. If you play both, that's completely fine. No issues there. I mean, they could play 40 plus minutes tonight, and that's going to carry a long ways for you when guys are going to play that many minutes potentially. Now let's go to the next tier guys on this team. That being Kyle Anderson, Brandon Clark, DeAnthony Melton, and Zaire Williams. It wouldn't shock me if Zaire Williams is out of the rotation or maybe plays very limited minutes today. He fit a lot better when Ja Morant was on the court and they were playing Tillman at the 5, where Zaire Williams was available for the kick out 3. It's not more so much the case. They're more of a ball movement team now without Ja Morant being in the picture. But Brandon Clark has kind of just lost his role because of Steven Adams is a good play. But Clark at that price tag, $3,900. And Kyle Anderson, I believe, also $4,300. Just talk to him about this trio, guys. I really don't like DeAnthony Melton tonight. I do think last game he got there because of blowout run and foul trouble / injury to Dillon Brooks. And I'm shying away from DeAnthony Melton. Maybe I'm overreacting to what I saw in game 4 at Golden State, but talk to me about these secondary guys.
Ownership here drives just a lot of the decision making for me because the rotation here is fluid in my opinion. Like we saw, 2 games ago where DeAnthony Melton didn't even play in the second half and he played like a total of 9 minutes. But you go back to the games where Ja Morant was in and Melton was playing a ton of minutes, playing, into the mid 20s. So I'm hesitant to say that, Morant being out just takes Anthony Melton out of the rotation. But at the same time, he did, like you said, he benefited last game from the Brooks injury, and then, obviously played a bunch of garbage time at the end of the game too. But if at 4,100, if Melton even gets to like 20 minutes, he probably does pretty well. And right now we only have him projected for 8% ownership. So it's, once again, and I said the same thing last slate, I think there's a very wide range on his playing time. And this is someone that 2 games ago was like 40 to 50% owned. And then, you had the game where he played 9 minutes. And obviously that's a huge data point that you need to pay attention to, but it's still one game. And, I don't know how many minutes he's going to play. When the field's not there on a good point per minute guy like Melton, it makes me want to be there. If his ownership projection were to go up to 30% or something, then I would run the other direction. But it does make me interested just because he is low owned. Same can be said for Kyle Anderson, who's getting 20% ownership right now. His playing time, like he played 22 minutes 2 games ago, but that was a game where he also closed over Steven Adams, which he certainly can, but it's not a given that that's going to happen. Last game, his playing time was a lot less appealing. He still got to 19 minutes, but 5 of that was garbage time. In the first half, he only played about 6 or 7 minutes, played a similar rotation in the second half. So I think that the 20% ownership coming into Kyle Anderson, while I understand it, I think that he's certainly somebody that's going to be in some of my lineups. I do think people might be a little bit too confident in his minutes.
Yeah, I agree with Kyle Anderson. I think I'm a little cautious there. And Melton is an excellent pivot off of guys who are higher owned, that being Connaughton and Derek White. And certainly you can fall on those guys together. It'll be a very unique roster build. But Melton on FanDuel, where he picks up steals at an awesome rate, I think he's fine to play there as well. Just a little cautious with those minutes, but Adam brought up excellent points of the minutes certainly can be there, that being foul trouble, which can certainly happen. Bane could re-aggravate his back. Maybe that could be a situation. There are a lot of things where Melton can definitely get there on a 2-game slate. I think you should be more willing to take on some higher risk with these type of guys, and they're going to be huge.
And Andrew just made the point in chat. I think it's a good one. So like when you think about roster construction, Derek White at 4K is going to pull a ton of ownership, and he should. Like, you should have more Derek White than DeAnthony Melton. I think that's a pretty obvious take. But within any given lineup, you have a bunch of good plays. If you just say, okay, like I have a bunch of popular guys, I'm going to play DeAnthony Melton instead of Derek White here, that's fine. Like, I think the ownership gap between White and Melton is probably going to be wider than it realistically should be.
Oh, definitely. And I agree with you on that one for sure. And first time you're complimenting chat. I've never seen you do that before, so I'm glad you made one. But
few and far between.
But no, that's an excellent point, and that's how 2-game tournaments are won. Like little pivots like that, and obviously you got to nail the rest of your lineup. Has to be like essentially perfect to win these 2-game slates now. Now, any final thoughts on the Memphis side of things? Any rotational changes you might see or anything that you're worried about potentially?
So I don't think we had touched on it, but Steven Adams at 4,500 still, assuming he starts, which I don't know why he wouldn't, still looks very good. Just a good point per minute guy. Brandon Clark is in the DeAnthony Melton bucket, where if things break a certain way, he can be a tournament winner just because he's such a good point per minute guy. We have seen his playing time really disappear with Adams starting now. I think on average, you're probably getting like 14 to 16 minutes from Clark, but he's only 3,900. And if he plays really well, or if Steven Adams gets in foul trouble, or if Jaren Jackson gets in foul trouble, like there's a lot of ways potentially for Brandon Clark to pick up more minutes, and he's not going to get too much ownership. He's at 15% right now. So someone else who, I think typically, like on average, is not going to be that useful here, but it doesn't take a whole lot changing for him to just end up being one of the better plays.
Yeah, I agree. I love Adams a lot, and it'd be tough for me not to play him in like one cash lineup at all. I like Adams a lot on DraftKings. FanDuel, I'm willing to get a little bit more different there, but DraftKings looks like it's pretty solid and awesome play. Any flyers on Zaire Williams before we go on the other side? He's just like the George Hill.
Yeah, throw him in with George Hill, Wesley Matthews, yes. Daniel Tice.
And certainly, the reason why I bring these guys up for the people who are watching is it's just like sometimes these guys have outlier performances, and it like really going to come to a point like we saw Shake Milton have that game yesterday, and just like you're like,
I actually had a lot of him and still managed to lose money.
I had some of him, but I didn't have Milton and Strus in the same lineup, which was unfortunate because I didn't feel like that was going to be the situation. But hit the like button. We're having over 1,600 people watching this show on this Friday evening. So on to the Golden State side of things we go. I'm going to start off with Steph Curry. I like Steph Curry a lot. 9,200, 9,400 on DraftKings and FanDuel. He looks outstanding. He's one of those players on a 2-game slate, can be the highest scoring player on the slate. Only 37 on Yahoo. I like Steph Curry a lot. I'm going to be willing to get above the field on a guy like him. How about yourself?
I agree. He looks good here. The price tags come down. I know you mentioned him being underowned on FanDuel earlier. He's projected to be a bit underowned on DraftKings as well. The difficult thing that you run into with Curry is, I think, very similar to what we were talking about with Tatum, where does your overall lineup just end up looking a little bit better if, say, you drop from Steph Curry to Jaylen Brown or Steph Curry to Drew Holiday and then upgrade somewhere else? But aside from considerations like that, I think getting to Steph is certainly somewhere I want to be. 26% ownership, projected for a 29% chance of being optimal. And certainly there's not many players like Giannis clearly projects just head and shoulders better than everybody, but there's not many players on this slate where if they did happen to go for 60 plus fantasy points, you wouldn't be absolutely shocked. Curry's one of the few where, if he did end up being the high scorer on the slate because Giannis has a little bit of a down game, you wouldn't, just be completely surprised.
No, definitely not. And that's the reason why where a guy like Steph Curry, I'm willing to go above the ownership. And he's shown he's shown the ability to play well and played really well towards the end of game 4, that is. And I like going back to him. So, and look, Steph Curry is an all-time great and 3-point bonus on DraftKings, and I like him a lot. Backcourt mate, Klay Thompson. This guy's had a very interesting series, pretty much a roller coaster of a series, starting off with game 1, missed those free throws, coming off like hitting the game-winning 3, and then struggled in game 2, plays well in the game when they blow out Memphis, struggles again. He's just not there defensively, but offensively, Klay Thompson, 7,100, 6,200. In terms of fantasy perspective, he's coming in with a ton of ownership over there on FanDuel, where I'm going to be a little bit under there on DraftKings, 7,100. He doesn't seem that exciting to me, honestly, at 7,100. I know the minutes can be 40 plus, but where you get the 3-point bonus, I'm kind of scared to be under the field on a guy like Klay today.
I have a hard time getting the Klay on DraftKings at 7,100. And the reason is just that, so for one, we talked about it with Horford, we talked about it with Jackson. I think it's kind of a difficult price point in general, just because you have such a strong 6K range. But with Thompson, he's so one-dimensional and hasn't even been a high usage guy, really. He has a 22% usage rate in the series. So that's behind Curry, it's behind Poole. Granted, in any individual game, if he's shooting well, that can go up. But he doesn't rebound. He doesn't get a lot of assists. He has an 11.5% assist percentage, 6.5% rebounding percentage in this series. So it's not, that Thompson's like a bad player or anything. It's just, it's hard for me to, if I'm getting into that 7K range, it's hard for me to get to Thompson before I get to Horford. It's hard for me to get to Thompson before I get to Jaren Jackson Jr. And then again, you have that really strong 6K range and that really strong 8K range. And he's also, still projected for 26% ownership. So we do have him projected to be a little bit under-owned. I guess I personally am a little bit lower on him, but I think I have difficulty getting to Thompson.
Yeah, and I think our reasons, if you want to contradict them, he has the upside of just knocking down 10 threes and getting there. Sure. And that's Klay Thompson's it's a 1-game sample. He can definitely do that. So that's a reason to play him. But if I were building limited lineups today, I don't think it's Klay Thompson isn't necessary by any means. Abel Ramos with a super chat. Will Allen's ownership go down while White goes up? Did we get a lineup from this Milwaukee team that's starting? Not sure if I fully understand that question. If you wanted to follow that up, Abel, happily cover that for you.
Yeah, so when we talked about Milwaukee, we still had Robert Williams in the ownership. Okay. Yeah, so we actually just got a new ownership run. Derek White now up to 43%. Grayson Allen is still at 25%. So I guess, yes, Derek White's ownership went up, but it didn't really have an impact on Grayson Allen.
Gotcha. There you go. Thanks for that, Adam. On to the next set of guys on Golden State we go. I'm going to go to Draymond Green, who's been pretty disappointing fantasy perspective-wise this series. He's kind of burned me every single game. And he's just not being aggressive offensively, missing time, obviously ejection in the first game, and then eye injury in the second. But now he's fallen to such a cheap price tag. Why do I fade Draymond Green today? I really don't want to. I really like him a lot.
Yeah, I really like this price tag. And the reason why, there's a couple of things. For one, he's still averaging 0.9 DraftKings points per minute in this series. It feels like he's been horrible from a fantasy standpoint because he's been horrible from a fantasy standpoint, but it's had a lot more to do with playing time than it has his actual on-court production. Like, he's not producing much worse than he typically does. It's just that, you had the ejection, you've had foul trouble, you've had blowouts. If this game is actually competitive, you're probably getting mid-30s from Draymond, even though he hasn't played it yet in this series for various reasons. And then the price tag just keeps going down. Even if he does play 32 or 33 minutes at 5,800, he projects as a good value. And I think there's still just plenty of room for that to go up because we haven't seen a competitive down to the wire game where Draymond is not ejected and or in foul trouble yet.
Yeah. And another thing is, I headed into the series, I thought Draymond Green could have a triple double in this series just because of the way that the series could play off for them. He definitely hasn't got there points wise. And I still like Draymond Green a lot. He's a priority for me. He's probably my favorite Warrior to roster just because of the price tag. And I just think he's an awesome play. Another Warrior who's been playing a ton of minutes and playing exceptional on defense is Andrew Wiggins. 5,600 over there on DraftKings, comes in at $6,000 on FanDuel. He's kind of in that Desmond Bane, Dylan Brooks situation, but I prefer the Memphis guys more than I do him just because of his role offensively. It's not much usage. You're going to get small amounts of leverage, but I prefer those other guys to Wiggins. But Wiggins would need an outlier offensive game to really get there. He showed that in game 4, right? He had a good fantasy game. And it's just the minutes. He's going to play upwards of 40 minutes if it's going to be close. That's the one thing that's going for him, but that's really about it. How do you feel about Andrew Wiggins?
He's just underpriced here, I think. And he also has forward eligibility, which is nice. You have so many good guard plays on this slate. But yeah, it's the minutes, like you said. In the competitive games in this series, he's played 34, 38, 39 minutes. He's around the 20% usage rate, but he's also rebounding relatively well, has about a 10.5% rebound percentage in the series. You've seen increased rebounding in the postseason in general from Wiggins. So he's scary in the sense that he's not going to lead the team he's very rarely going to lead the team in usage. He's rarely going to lead the team in rebounding. He's never going to lead the team in assists. But he does all of it well enough and just plays enough minutes where he's still underpriced here and gets you some other really good plays into your lineup.
Yeah, no, I think you nailed it down perfectly. Hit the like button, everybody. If you can get somewhere near 400 likes before the live before lock crew comes in, that'd be fantastic. Rounding this thing up with Otto Porter, John Kuminga. Okay, this is an interesting situation. My gut inclination is I think Porter's going to play. He did some on-court work. The foot soreness, I think, prevented him coming back due to 50-point blowout. Now, if Porter is out, I still think Kuminga will start, but I think Nemanja Bjelica will enter the rotation if Porter is out. And I don't know how many minutes he's going to play. I don't know if it's enough minutes, but I think that might happen. Or Kuminga might get more minutes. It's one of those two things. I'm not so sure, but I think
Kevon Looney plays more.
You think Kevon Looney plays more? I think that's another way that could happen. It's a little tough situation to pinpoint on a 2-game slate. It's really tough to even build and second guess lineups of what that might look like, trying to predict that injury situation. Do you have a inclination on what people might do or should do?
So first off, I'm with you. I think Porter plays. The last report I saw was that it was just going to depend how he feels. My general assumption is that when you ask a professional athlete if he feels like playing in a playoff game, he says yes. So I'm assuming he's going to play, and all of this is going to be moot. And Porter at 4,200 will be a solid, project as a solid value. You'll probably get the Kuminga spot start and then disappearing act again. But if Porter were to be ruled out, which I don't anticipate that we find out until after lock, you still should have plenty of roster spots open because you're going to just naturally have so much exposure to Memphis. You're going to have plenty of Golden State. It's going to be easy to swap guys around if Porter does get ruled out. And then, I wouldn't say any of these guys are safe, but it does open up a lot of potential value, whether it's Kuminga playing more minutes, which I'm not dead set on that happening because he has been awful in the series when he has played. And that's one reason why I think that maybe you would just see them go back to more, Draymond alongside Kevon Looney lineups potentially. But it would at least open the door for Kuminga to possibly get more minutes. It would open the door for Looney to possibly get more minutes. It would open the door for Bjelica to possibly play more minutes, like you were saying, and like we saw last game. So if Porter is out, it becomes a situation where I'm not confident in which one of those guys does well, but they're all good enough point per minute guys where I would want to be kind of just throwing darts at them because you're not talking about your Wesley Matthews type 3K guy where if he plays 30 minutes, he's probably going to score 15 fantasy points. You're talking about guys where if one of them plays 24, 25, 26 minutes, they're probably in the tournament winning lineup.
Yep. And one thing that I think you nailed it perfectly. I can't explain it much better than that. The last guy to touch on is Jordan Poole. We did not see that PTSD lineup last game. And Mike Brown said, I think they'll probably go back to it. It's just probably a game script blowout. We didn't see, I think Jordan Poole is a fine option to go to. But the thing is, they're now targeting Jordan Poole defensively when he's on the court. They're just attacking him whenever he's on there. He's a fine tournament play. I don't have a strong inclination. I've been under the field on this guy all playoffs long and hasn't worked out just because he's been playing that well efficiently offensively. 6,700 on DraftKings is okay. I don't like it that much. 6K on FanDuel, I think he's a solid play there. Right? Yeah, any final thoughts on Poole?
Yeah, I think that's where I'm at as well. I will say that I do prefer him slightly over Clay, 6,700 to 7,100, just because not only has the usage rate been higher in the series, but he's much more involved as a playmaker. So while I don't expect him to play as many minutes as Thompson, I do think if this game's close, you're probably still getting mid-30s from Poole and just more involved than Thompson is.
All right, that was fun. Who wins tonight? Who wins these 2 games tonight?
Golden State and hopefully Boston.
Because you do have some Boston futures, right?
Yeah, I have Boston to win the title at 22-1.
Ooh, well, I'll be rooting for those Boston futures. I do think Golden State, and I think Giannis closes it out in Game 6. But we'll see what happens. Everyone, hit the like button. Check out Odd Shopper. We'll catch you later. It was another fun show to do with you, Adam. Hopefully we get one more of these before the NBA season winds out. But everyone enjoy your Friday. Hopefully you guys win.
That's where we're at on the day. Yeah, Shake Milton season, right? Whatever. What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the NBA Live Before Lock, presented by Odd Shopper. It's Friday. We've got a two-game slate. It looks a lot like the previous 5 iterations of this two-game slate. We're going to break it down. And I've got just the guy to do it. Well, I'm not positive anymore because he's apparently, he went 0 dark 30 on me this morning in about 3 minutes of our show, our MLB show. All the power in all the land disappeared in New Jersey, and Greg was unable to continue. But he's here now, at least for now. That's great. At Ehrenberg DFS, go follow him there. How you doing, my dude?
So I was there for the most important part of the show, which was making fun of Mike Lawrence for the Philadelphia 76ers losing. So we got to make fun of him for a few minutes. And then you and I start breaking down the baseball, very, very briefly breaking down the baseball slate. You read off like the line of the first game. I'm about to talk about why I think Framber Valdez isn't a good DFS play. And all of a sudden I realize I'm talking to nobody. And not only am I talking to nobody, Eric, your eyes are moving, so it doesn't work. Like I could tell that you're not actually frozen.
Okay.
So I'm talking. I realize not only am I not talking to anybody, but my ring light has gone out. The lights have gone out in my room. So I realized like, oh, all of the power is out in my house. So what ended up happening is I had a compressor, which is what operates, I believe, the air conditioning and the heat. That blew out. Somebody was there changing it in order to work on it, had to flip the breaker and turn off the power everywhere in the house. And I don't know anything about these things. I just know somebody's coming to work on my house and all of a sudden there isn't any power. So that aside, I'm sorry that I owe you a public apology. I am sorry that I dipped out on you like 5 minutes into our show this morning, and then you had to do a 2-hour show without me. Apologies.
Yeah. Well, it's okay. I got to fulfill Terry's Make-A-Wish. I got to allow him to do an hour and a half off the cuff. Hey, I'll step in and fill in. Just rattled off on a 13-game slate. He was awesome. Filled in very, very admirably. Not just admirably, better than Greg. That's what. No, I love you. Good to have you back, my friend. Let's get to it, shall we? I just got my baseball lineups in, so my brain is just shifting from that to the NBA streets. But you know what? Considering we've had these slates constantly over the last week and a half now, it's not too difficult to just zip in and be capable of covering it. Robert Williams ruled out right from the get-go. I adjusted everything for that. But anything else stick out to you before we dive into this 2-gamer that, as I said before, looks a lot like the previous 2-gamer we had of these two games?
Yeah. So, I mean, the Robert Williams being ruled out is going to be significant. And the other thing that's going to be huge for this slate is Otto Porter is questionable. And if he plays, I think he's a really good value option. If he is out, then we're looking at Kuminga. Bjelica could come into the picture because Bjelica started the second half last game because the Warriors' starting lineups have been really bizarre. They start Kuminga in the first half. They start Otto Porter Jr. in the second half, and Kuminga just barely plays. But with Porter potentially being out today, does that mean Kuminga starts the first and second half? Does it mean Bjelica starts both halves? Does it mean that they do the same thing as last game, or it's Kuminga in the first half, Bjelica in the second half? So there's a lot of different interesting things that could happen if Otto Porter's ruled out. There aren't that many times in the playoffs where you and I get to talk about late swap, Eric. It's back, and we should be excited about it.
And not only that, but on a 2-gamer where people aren't at their computer because nothing could possibly happen. We just saw what happened with Steven Adams. He was completely unowned in the starting lineup, absent John Morant on a 2-game slate. It's not going to have that same kind of capability, but I've got a guy that I think is the absolute smash of all smashes if Otto Porter is ruled out. And it's not who you probably think it is. So I'm pretty excited to get to that point. It'll be the last position we cover. That probably gives it away, but whatever. Let's get to it, shall we? We go position by position like we always do. Oh my God,
here. You're a Kevin Looney stan today.
Oh, sure freaking am, my friend. Sure am.
Right.
Good to see everybody in chat. By the way, Rinpack, amazing job hosting, crushed it. If you enjoyed it as much as I did, hit the like button. He didn't get the like button hit nearly enough. So we got to get that thing up as we get into the analysis here. It's all right. You know, it's one of those things where we're going to bypass a little bit. Oh, I'm a top 10 player in the world. I'm not going to get the likes for my company. It's fine. It's fine, Ryan. We love you anyway. Position by position, it's top end here. Steph Curry, 9,200. Jaylen Brown, 8,200. Drew Holiday, somehow down to 7,900 and hasn't really shot the ball well. 9 for 24, 5 for 22. If we see any kind of positive shooting regression, Drew Holiday is the guy I would want an eternal amount of. Let's put Klay Thompson into the mix here as well. 7K and up on DraftKings. Who are you rostering the most?
Yeah, so it's Drew Holiday for me, and I've been doing these a lot in the playoffs, and you know, obviously you're not going to hit all longer odds bets. Like last night, I had that bet where I'd parlayed the Joel Embiid 2+ threes with 30+ points at 20-1. He ended up hitting the 2 threes super early in the game, and it was looking good. He ultimately didn't get to the 30 points, but I came away still feeling like, all right, that individual bet lost, but I think it was a good play. And I have something kind of similar in terms of just taking the alternate lines on Jrue Holiday's points. Because like you said, he's not shot well in this series. His points prop is fairly low today. When I looked earlier in the day, it was, I believe, 19.5. And I think it's up to 20.5 now. Considering how much Jrue Holiday has shot the ball so far in the series without Chris Middleton. And by the way, to your point, he has not shot it well. But are we going to expect that Jrue Holiday continues to be, super inefficient from the field? Not quite to this extent, but the fact that now his points prop is 20.5, and he's been averaging over 20 points in this series with really poor shooting efficiency. I think Jrue Holiday is another one. The over on the points prop makes sense because here's his usage in this series: 29%, 30%, 31%, 27%, 28%. So I like the over on Jrue Holiday's points prop as well as the alternate lines. I'm just trying to pull up what they're at now to see what they've gotten to. But also, to answer your question, Jrue Holiday is the guard that I get the most exposure to.
Oh, let's see. Ibe Masson, liked for Greg only. He makes me money. That's fine. I'm just fine if you just like the video for Greg. I would just like the video for Greg. Sometimes I don't like myself, so I'm just fine with that analysis. If you've been on these shows enough, yeah, we've got Tyler Zander behind the virtual glass nodding. Yes, Eric. Very, very self-loathing from time to time. That is a fact, confirmed. So whatever gets it done, baby, smash the like button. I'm with you, Jrue Holiday. I think 7,900. Good Lord, did that tag come down pretty unnecessarily? Let me ask you this on FanDuel then. Same thing. Steph Curry, 9,400. Jrue Holiday, 9K. Tyus Jones, 7,200. What planet are we on? A good one, I would say, because Tyus Jones at least aggressively priced up. Rank those three for me.
Yeah. So, by the way, while we're at it, because I just looked up the alternate, I just want to hear what your opinions are on these lines, because we are trying to tell people about the sports betting, and I just pulled it up because I want to know if you like these bets as well. Jrue Holiday 7-1 to score 30+ points, and Jrue Holiday at plus 210 to score 25+ points. The 7-1 on 30+ points. That's a really wide line for a guy who's shooting this much. Like, he's pretty regularly putting up a usage rate around 30%.
All right, we're going to just stop what we're doing right now. We're going to go right to this. LBL bets. LBL bets. That is what we need right now. BetMGM. If you want to join Greg in that parlay right now, this second, all you have to do is simply bet $10 over at BetMGM. You'll get $200 free. And if somebody makes a 3 tonight, you're going to get 4 free $50 bets. Now, this is the first game, so maybe put $20 on BetMGM or $50 on BetMGM so that you can single game parlay these together. I haven't looked at FD. I haven't looked at DK. I live in California. They hate us here, but Prize Picks is great. Take advantage of it over there. But as Greg was just saying, LBL bets have the opportunity to parlay that together because Jrue Holiday, just like yesterday, I don't care about Joel Embiid. And the nice thing about the Joel Embiid thing too, is you knew that you got good numbers on something. So regardless of it having a 20% chance of hitting, you were getting paid 20-1 on something that I thought was pretty likely of happening, more so than, not a true 50-50 maybe, but for sure, maybe like 25% of the time getting paid 20-1. What did you say the payoff was for Jrue Holiday there?
It's he's 7-1 to score 30 or more points.
7-1 to score 30 or more. And then not parlaying that with any 3-point prop, right?
No 3-point prop. Just straight up. Here's some of the alternate lines for Jrue Holiday. It's 7-1 for him to score 30+ points, and then plus 210 for him to score 25 or more. Okay. I like if you're just looking to make one of them. I know it's obviously a little more unlikely, but I do like the odds slightly better on the 30+.
I do too. Again, it's just getting rewarded for him actually having a decent, competent shooting night, which hasn't happened yet really in the last two. Nope. So I feel like that's pretty good. I like the over of 0.5 threes for Brook Lopez there, projected for 38% expected ROI plus 120. Put those two together over at BetMGM. Use promo code LBL Bets. That is LBL Bets at BetMGM. Sign up over there. Take advantage of that. Put those two together in a single game parlay. That should look pretty good. Lots of super chats that just came in, but I really like that call. Back to my original question for FanDuel. Steph Curry, Jrue Holiday, Tyus Jones. Rank those 1, 2, 3 for FanDuel purposes.
so funny that Steph Curry is wound up in the same tier as Tyus Jones in a question. Like who would have thought it at any point? Like coming into the playoffs, could you have ever imagined that we would be like, hey, who do you like better, Tyus Jones or Steph Curry? And
how about if you had told me Tyus Jones 7,200? I would have thought that DeAnthony Melton, Ja Morant, DeAnthony Melton, Dylan Brooks, they all got in like an accident or something on the way to the arena. Like that they just had like neck problems and couldn't play.
But I mean, the answer is Steph Curry to me. And he has shot the ball poorly to an extent that almost doesn't make sense in the playoffs. I'm going to pull up what his actual him and Klay Thompson for that matter. And what's funny about the Warriors absolutely getting their asses kicked last game, it was the first time all series that Curry and Klay finally shot the ball well, but it didn't matter because they couldn't get any stops on defense at all against the best team in the NBA, which of course, what's the best team in the NBA, Eric? It is the Memphis Grizzlies without Ja. Just unbeatable. I'm almost positive. If you had to guess, what do you think they are against the spread this year in games that Ja Morant doesn't play? There's been 27 games.
Yeah, they're 21-6. I know that for a fact because that's the number that's been floating around everywhere. I bet they are 20-7 against the spread.
24-3.
Jesus Christ. It's a good guy.
And,
he's a good guy, I heard.
And once again, Ja Morant is good. I like to troll people and pretend that Ja Morant isn't good or isn't valuable, but he is overrated. And that's a pretty good indication of it. The fact that lines are moving so extremely that the Grizzlies cover the spread every single time he's out, it gets overrated a little bit, his impact. But that aside, the 3-point shooting in this series from Steph Curry and Klay Thompson has been horrific. And it has to normalize. Steph Curry shooting 32% from three in this series. He shot 3 of 8 last game. That was one of his better shooting performances, believe it or not, in the series. The games before that, he was 4 of 14, 2 of 8, 3 of 11. It's not like he's going to stop shooting. And the fact that the prices now come down and let's see, what do we have the latest ownership projection on Steph Curry at? The latest ownership,
34.8%
on FanDuel. He's not even that popular. I really like Steph Curry on FanDuel today. I think he's a really, really strong option to be overweight too.
I can honestly say this entire series, we haven't once said play Steph Curry. So that's saying something. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure this is the first time that I'm going to be overweight to him this series. And I'm going to. It's the way I felt about Chris Paul. I didn't even get overweight to Chris Paul yesterday. And it was still like the first time where I'm like, he's in the realm of playable. Like Steph Curry, this is the first time that I've actually looked at Steph Curry and said, I might want to play him in this spot. I will say that defensively, Bane, Brooks, the combination of him, I mean, Tyus Jones is kind of been on Steph a little bit more here, but he's been doing a great job. I don't know. It's Steph Curry. And if you told me put up 70 at home against the Grizzlies without Ja, nothing I just said sounds abnormal. It hasn't happened yet. That doesn't mean that it's not going to be a future result here by any means, but now the price at least is in a spot where I think I want to take that shot with you. I only had 12% on DK, even at 9,200. Maybe I give him a little bit of a bump, but it's so hard to get away from Drew Holiday at 7,900. So hard for me to get away from Tyus Jones at 5,700 over there. But on FanDuel, even though you don't get the 3-point bonus, I think that there's something there. I might give him a little bit of a boost here as we get closer there too. Some super chats to get caught up on. Then we'll get back to guards, mid-range guard, kind of an important talking point. My filler arc, $9.99. When Bane saw a pregnant lady, he stood up and offered her his chair while injured when she was almost sitting down. Brooks kicked the chair from under her. Curry for captain today at home on DK or Tyus Jones?
Steph Curry. So once again, I think the ceiling is really high for Steph Curry. And by the way, as for Desmond Bane, absolute shame on him. Shame on Desmond Bane, because that's a real story that I'm almost positive we wrote about over on Side Action. Mm-hmm. But as for the Steph Curry thing, and also because people are going to ask about him on DraftKings, I'm overweight to him on DraftKings and FanDuel in the builds I have right now because he's modest ownership on both sides. His price is way down, and the 3-point shooting is going to normalize. He's not going to continue to shoot this poor, and it's not like he stopped taking shots either. The usage there, so. I'm going to be overweight to Curry today. That's going to be my answer. And Tyus Jones is at, he's been priced up, not to the point where he's unplayable. Obviously, $5,700 on FanDuel, $5,700 on DK is still a more than playable price point. But FanDuel at 7,200, I just think that's about reasonable for Tyus Jones.
Carlos Manzo, $5, man of the people with the super chat. Eric, your late swap takes have helped me win thousands. Carlos, you're so welcome. Greg, you have inspired me to eat a cleaner, healthier, more protein-based breakfast.
There we go. There we go, Carlos.
I think yours is more important. You're helping his long-term health.
Absolutely. No, I have to. I don't think there's anything more important than gambling. I'm telling you, if you told me I could win a $5 parlay or avoid a heart attack, tough decision. I might go with the parlay.
Make it 6 legs, and I'll take the risk. Make it a 6-legger.
Yeah. Parlay it is.
Oh, what you know about parlay? Let's go down to the mid-range here at guard. We've got my guy, Tyus Jones, over on DraftKings. Is this another situation where even at 5,700, he's just drastically underpriced for this role? I say yes. What say you?
Yeah, I mean, to me, what we talk about, everybody knows to play Tyus Jones at this point. Like, there's no secret about it, and it's pretty evident when you look at the ownership projections. He's projected to be in 58% of the field's lineups. Steven Adams, also 58%. Derek White, 56%, by the way. So these are by far the 3 most popular plays on the slate. So I don't think we're asking a yes or no about Tyus Jones. People know to get exposure to Tyus Jones. People know if you're playing cash games, you're playing Tyus Jones on DraftKings. The question really becomes, do we want to be over or underweight to the field on Tyus Jones? And I'm even with the field. So the answer is neither. I'm taking no strong stance on Tyus Jones. I think the 58% is about warranted in the run I have right here. He is 57% for me. And the only way I imagine that changing too much is like if something happens with Otto Porter where he's ruled out and I have to change a bunch of my lineups. But or else, yeah, I mean, Tyus Jones is going to be in a little more than half my lineups.
As you go up in stakes, I find it hard to believe that I wouldn't have Tyus Jones in that lineup. I think that that's probably fair. In large field stuff, if you want to be below 58%, have at it. If you want to be around the field, have at it. But like, I find him so necessary as you move up in stakes. If you're trying to build like a single entry team, I can't imagine not playing a 5,700 Tyus Jones, which again is a weird thing to say out loud, but it's just the way that I feel about it.
Yeah. And once again, I mean, he's popular, but I think it's warranted. The only player at guard I have more exposure to right now than Tyus Jones is Jrue Holiday. I think Jrue Holiday on DK is going under-owned, which seems crazy when a guy is projected for 47% ownership. But would I rather have Jrue Holiday at 7,900 or Tyus Jones at 5,700? The answer for me is Jrue Holiday, and Jrue Holiday is also less popular. So that is my preference in terms of the popular guards.
Well, yeah, and the boom bust tool backs you up too. The best tool you have for the NBA here at Awesemo. It's incredible. Even for these 2-game slates, you need to be using it constantly. I refer to it constantly throughout these shows. You have Steven Adams, Giannis, Tyus Jones, Jrue Holiday in terms of optimal percentage, but Tyus Jones, 47% of the time optimal, coming in with 11% higher ownership, whereas Jrue Holiday, it's about flat, 46.8%, 43.4% optimal. I think you're right. I think left to picking one or the other to go massively overweight to, because Jrue Holiday hasn't had that it game that people point to. And it's like, oh, Jrue Holiday shot the ball well. He didn't shoot the ball well, but I'm with you. I think he's going underlooked, which is so weird to say at 46.8%. Rest of the mid-range here, we'll put Jaylen Brown into the conversation along with like Jordan Poole, Desmond Bane, Marcus Smart, a lot of like 6K, 7,100 for Clay, lots of guys to kind of get to in this mid-range. Who are you prioritizing the most?
Yeah. So when we talk about some of these guards here, one thing to talk about when it comes to Jaylen Brown is don't sleep on his minutes, because they may have been down a little bit as of late, but look at the circumstance of those games where there was foul trouble issues. And we also have to consider the playing time for the other players on the Boston Celtics. So last game, he plays 35 minutes, but got into some early foul trouble. The game before that, he played 32 minutes. And he picked up his 4th foul pretty early in the 3rd quarter and didn't get to play much in the 2nd quarter. But looking at last game, here were the minutes for the other players on. Also, Boston is facing elimination today, which is also going to be a important talking point when mentioning this team. Jason Tatum played 41.5 minutes. Al Horford played 41. Marcus Smart played 38. Derek White ended up playing 32 off the bench. Grant Williams started and he sucked. He was terrible. He played 31 minutes and basically nothing. As long as Jaylen Brown avoids foul trouble, I don't see any reason he wouldn't end up playing the same minutes that Al Horford and Jason Tatum play. So I think that we're probably looking at 40 plus minutes from Jaylen Brown. And I don't know that a lot of people have really taken note of why it was that he played less minutes the last couple of games.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's just a foul trouble thing. Pretty apparent if you've been watching the games. Sometimes you look at a box score, you never know if they don't completely foul out of certain spots. And yeah, I'm with you where I think Jaylen Brown makes some sense. I do prioritize him over Jason Tatum today. And I've kind of been on the flip side. I know Adam and Ryan were talking on the last show how they're both on the Brown side. This is the first time I think I'm pretty pronounced towards an 8,200 Jaylen Brown. Part of that is that I can't just make Jason Tatum work in lineups when Tyus Jones was 3,400 or when he was mid 4Ks. Same thing with Adams. His prices continue to go up. This is the first time where they're not automatic jams for me in the last two slates. By default, I think I'm just landing on Brown as his tag started to come down, and I'm not going to be landing on as much Tatum, not as much automatic Giannis Antetokounmpo, even though he's a guy that we'll get to here in a second because I still love him for this slate. As far as the cheapies go, a lot of Derek White chatter here in the chat. A lot of Derek White chatter, and I get it. Lots of D'Anthony Melton chatter from the last slate. That worked out nicely. Still sucks that we got Kyle Anderson out there in a pronounced way to really kind of bust our bubble, our chances of really taking something down. But Derek White, this entire cheap end, what are you doing specifically with him?
Yeah, so I think that Derek White is, let's see, what is his, last I looked, he was projected to be super popular. So 56% ownership. Derek White's clearly a good value play, but if I'm projecting more minutes for Jaylen Brown, a lot of those minutes come from Derek White. So once again, totally. I do think that he's a really good value play. I just don't think he warrants 56% ownership. So I'm about half the field on him. And I kind of like mixing it around at some of these cheaper guard spots. Like I still like getting some exposure to Melton. Obviously, he's not the same play this slate as he was last slate because last time you and I, we got Rosh Melton and nobody was playing D'Anthony Melton. He's going to be a little more popular now, but even so, I don't think there's a massive difference between Derek White and D'Anthony Melton. And I mean, White is picking up so much more ownership. So I like being underweight to the field on Derek White, which isn't to say that he isn't a good value play. I just can't reason fitting him in over half my lineups.
Yeah, I've got 30% of him right now. I'll see kind of where I end up finalizing it at, but 56.3% on DK.
Yeah.
It's a lot for a guy who hasn't made any shots.
And I mean, I don't even care if he's not making shots. He's not taking shots.
He's gone 4 for 5, 4 for 6 the last two, but I'm saying threes. Yeah, he's not taking that many the last two. He's not a good 3-point shooter.
Well, his usage in the last two games with extended minutes is 9.4% and 9.1%.
Exactly.
But the biggest thing to me is also that Jaylen Brown got in foul trouble for both those games. I would be pretty surprised if we see 34 minutes out of Derek White again.
I would concur with that sentiment. A couple super chats. Guys, you guys are the best. I love seeing the super chats come in. Always happy to answer them. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. Hitting the like button is great too, but these super chats are really, really appreciated. Oliver Closeoff, see? Yeah, no, I can just lay into the bit now. FMK, you know what to do. White, Alan Clark. I know everybody's going to kill Alan.
So you missed our guy Michael McKinney's super chat at the top of the show.
Michael McKinney at the top. Where did I miss that at? I don't see it.
It's as usual. He's asking FanDuel cash
there
questions.
We go.
So he wants to know who the must plays are in FanDuel cash. Sometimes he mixes it up. He wants us to ask who the top 5 plays are. Sometimes he wants to know who the top 2 spend ups and the top 3 value plays are. But for the 2-game slate, I think we'll go with what he's asked us the last couple of shows, which is who are the top 5 cash game plays over on FanDuel. Hard to avoid a lot of these Warriors guys over on FanDuel, in my opinion. I would say, I know he's not as popular, but I would still go with Steph Curry at 9,400. For me personally, I really like getting to Steph Curry. Draymond Green being another one, and Klay Thompson, the big 3 for the Warriors. Those are the 3 most important cash game plays for me. And then the other ones I would round it out with Giannis and Dillon Brooks.
Giannis, Dillon Brooks. Yeah. Giannis, Dillon Brooks, Draymond, Klay. And then, I mean, here's the thing. I know it's weird to say, but if Otto Porter does play at 4,300, if you have access to be able to have him fit into a lineup as you're maneuvering things, would he be a guy you'd feel pretty secure in cash? Because I think I would at 4,300.
At 40, I don't think you can, just because even if he plays, we don't know if he's going to be limited.
Okay.
It's more of a tournament play than a cash game play for me.
Smart, Brown, Tatum, Grant Williams, Horford starting here. So we're getting the Grant Williams starting spot. Good to double check and make sure that was going to be the case. You just never know. Weatherman 7, $2.99 with a fist bump sticker. Yeah, man. We appreciate it. Always good stuff. Like the stickers. I like you making Greg have to realize what a sticker is. It's always good to keep him cultured.
Yeah. As if you knew. As if you knew.
I did know because I'm with it. I'm hip. FMK again. White Allen Clark.
Oh, all right. So let's see.
We're out to kill
White
something.
Allen Clark.
Hunting man, the greatest.
But this is a tough one. This is a tough one because all right. So can I fuck and marry Derek White? But I'm also underweight to him. Like by default, I have to kill Grayson Allen.
Yes.
Every
it's
time
on
by
principle.
default.
On principle.
By default, we are killing Grayson Allen every time. Grayson Allen, dead. We've offed him. We've saved 15 injuries in the NBA this year. Or next year.
Yeah, Clark, I don't really have a whole lot to do with. I get.
Yeah. It's the only of those guys. I have a little bit of exposure to Brandon Clark in tournaments just because, it's the Grizzlies rotation. Weird things happen, but he's not a core part of my build. Derek White, I get exposure to, but he's one of the most popular plays on the slate. So I'm underweight to him. It's tough. I don't like Derek White. I mean, I don't like Derek White relative to his ownership. I don't like Grayson Allen at all. And I don't feel great about Brandon Clark's minutes. So I can't give you a definitive answer, but I think that kind of spells it out.
Oh, so great. So you're good for one good belly laugh segment thing, and it's not fake. My filler arc, $4.99. Bain donated his salary to Fire Relief, while Brooks tweeted thoughts and prayers. Last question, last man in balance lineup, Drew or Brown DK. So Drew Holiday or Brown, if you're picking last man in, it's still Drew Holiday for me.
LMI, Drew Holiday.
LMI. Love it. Nelson Resto, is Bobby P a good play playing at home? We'll get there at forward for you, but a sneak preview. Do you like Bobby Portis today?
Not really.
Okay.
If you have a little bit, he's not unplayable. It's a two. Once again, I hate that I kind of have to reference this with a lot of guys, but it's a 2-game slate, and anybody with upside is somewhat viable for a 2-game slate. But I do not have much exposure to him, and I am slightly underweight to the field on Bobby Portis. Actually, I'm quite a bit underweight to the field on Bobby Portis. He's 26% owned. I have half that number.
Hang on 1 second. I got to finish something in baseball that just got mixed up. There we go. Look at me. Whew. Just what a great time to be alive. Fridays, multiple sports, doing the thing, doing the dance, feeling the flow. What was that?
Living the life.
Living the life, my friend. Living the life. Gambling desensitizes you to everything else. Y'all skip my super chat. Foster Elijah. I didn't mean to. Did I skip it? I don't see it. Foster Elijah.
He asked, are we over
under?
Okay.
Got it. Over or under on Triple J tonight on DK.
All right. So Jaren Jackson Jr., I'm overweight to. That should be a surprise to nobody. He's projected for 20% ownership on DraftKings, 20% on FanDuel. FanDuel is fairly expensive at $7,900. But on DK, where he's 7K and isn't that popular, I like being overweight to Jaren Jackson Jr. I think his upside is massive today. His upside is always massive.
Yeah.
But, I mean, people just still are not playing Jaren Jackson Jr., and they should.
Ryan brought up something interesting. Steven Adams on the floor this season. Jaren Jackson's foul rate goes down significantly. I think that makes some sense. He's not getting stupid fouls, generally isn't guarding the 5 on the other team. Has an opportunity to play a little bit more perimeter. And, obviously he'll still be at the rim trying to deflect shots and doing things of that nature. But I think Steven Adams helps suppress his foul rate a little bit. So I don't really mind firing up as much Triple J as you want.
Once 15-1 to score 30 plus points today. I'm on it again.
Let's do that. I'm a big fan of that. Another thing we should all do right now, if you guys are checking us out, I mean, I already brought it up, but BetMGM, use promo code LBLBets. That's in the chat here from Tyler Zander, who put up Greg Ehrenberg, Jordan Ehrenberg in the background on the left. That's why he hasn't been sending me the super chats. Appreciate it, though. Time well spent, Tyler. That's the way that I look at it. Anything like Greg Ehrenberg just dunking on the opposition in his background. I'm here for it. But LBL bets, sign up at BetMGM. That is just a promo we have going here at Live Before Lock, helping you guys get that free $200. That's four $50 bets just by betting $10 for any team on the money line here tonight. When a 3-pointer is made, you'll win that $200. Good times. Sign up. Use it now. Let's make some money here. And then we'll talk about some Odd Shopper, some other ways that we can make some money here together. But we jump over to the forward spot. Anything else at guard that's pressing that you really want to discuss?
Let's see. So other guards, just one sec. I'm scrolling through my exposure to see if there's anything I'm way different on in the field or something we haven't really talked about. I guess I should say this, even though I said to kill Grayson Allen, it was kind of out of principle. He's in my player pool today, so I don't want that to be misconstrued.
Yeah, I grew up a Duke fan, and I'm just fine letting Grayson Allen die. So
yeah,
shout out Grayson Allen. You're whatever.
Yeah.
To the forward spot we go. Giannis Antetokounmpo feels like a talking point. Feels like somebody we should discuss here at the top end. He's up to 11-9 on DraftKings. He's up to 12K on FanDuel. Are you going to be making way for more than 62% of Giannis in your FanDuel lineups at 12K? Or on DraftKings, or than 47% of Giannis on DK?
So I'm a little bit underweight to the field on Giannis, which is not really an indictment of his upside because clearly it's massive. If you don't have Giannis projected for the most fantasy points on the slate by a really wide margin, you've made a terrible error. I have him projected for, let's see, how many more fantasy points do I have Giannis for over the second highest score on the slate? It's about a 15-point fantasy point gap for me. I have Giannis at 63.3 and then Jason Tatum at 48.5. That is the difference between the top score and the second top score in my projections today. And I still come in underweight to Giannis just because there isn't that much value I like. And it makes it a little hard for me to jam in. The other thing also is I am trying to leave myself a little bit of flexibility for the Otto Porter news.
Yes.
So I'm a little bit more weighted towards the later game than the early game. With that in mind, once again, I have a good amount of exposure to Giannis. It's just not what the field is at because he is really popular and it is a little difficult to get to him.
Look, everybody, we don't get to play the late slate. Like Steven Adams, we had no idea that he was going to end up starting, except for somebody in YouTube chat during the show. I believe that you guys were on. I think it was you and was it us? I don't think we were on it. Maybe we were, but Steven Adams started out of the middle of nowhere and somebody in chat's like, Steven Adams is a lock today. And I kept looking at it being like, what crack does he have? And where do we all get some so that we can join on this ridiculous take? But it ended up working out. He was 6%. I know you swapped to a zillion of him. I swapped to quite a bit, but not nearly enough. I should have just jammed all in on it. Otto Porter, you're not going to run into many situations where you're going to get a drastically under-owned guy. And sure, it's one of those things where it's going to be like, oh, he's 20% as opposed to 40%. But it just comes down to what's his optimal appearance rate. What do you get when you get it right? And he ends up playing in this spot. He's 4,200 on DraftKings. He has an optimal appearance rate of 29.1% in the boom bust tool. That's just under a third of the time he's going to work out optimal. But the ownership is 13%. And I find it hard to believe that if that news comes out late, people are going to be swapping to him. And I'm sure there's people, just like the Adams news, where they're going to be concerned about what Porter's playing time looks like. And I don't really have those concerns. If he plays, I bet he's a full go. They got the doors blown off of them in Memphis. He's probably my favorite forward to get to on this entire slate relative to ownership. How about you?
All right. So I'm going to push back on one thing you said.
Okay.
But the most important point I agree with, which is that I think he's really good to get to today.
Yes.
Because once again, it's a sliding scale. These are the players you and I have been targeting a lot during the playoffs. 2-game slates, a player that's low owned, but a lot of variance, a lot of upside. Think like the Steven Adams play, the Joel Embiid play from last night, DeAnthony Melton a couple nights ago. We're looking for guys that are going to be lower owned with a really wide range of outcomes. And here's where I'm going to disagree with you on. I do not think if Otto Porter plays, he's a lock to play full minutes because of the situation of the game. If he's able to suit up today at all, if he's able to give them 5 minutes, they're going to put him out there for 5 minutes. I think that he's very live to end up playing and just play limited minutes because that's all he has. because it's an important game. It's a playoff game. If this is a regular season game towards the end of the season, he was listed as questionable, then it's like he's only playing if he's 100%. I don't think him being active today means he's 100%. I think it means like, what do they have to lose at this point in the season? So, but once again, the wider point is that he's not expected to be popular today. And he's cheap. We've seen him have upside before. And if he does get ruled out, we have the swapability to move to other guys. We could swap to Kuminga if he starts. We could get exposure to Bjelica because Bjelica could end up starting. So I like getting to Otto Porter, but that doesn't mean he's a safe play if he's in.
Okay. That is a fair way of looking at it. I just feel like because of the blowout, I think we might, with the foot soreness, he was in pregame, he went through shoot around. I feel like I'm still going to get him and have the opportunity for him to be a guy that plays near those same minutes allotment that we have here at Awesemo for him. So I think I probably feel a little bit more confident than you do. But if you told me that was something that you wanted to factor in, I just think the low ownership accounts for the fact that there is that risk. So that's probably the correct way of looking at it. I'll amend it. Greg, you have an okay take from time to time. Jason Tatum, 9,800 on DraftKings. I said I like Jaylen Brown a little bit more, and I've been more on the side of Jason Tatum, but that's because the value is a little bit thinner than we've had on these kind of slates, especially since the Ja Morant injury. Do you have any prominent take on Jason Tatum?
I just haven't played him much this series. It's to reiterate some of my other talking points from this series is that the way that the Milwaukee Bucks like to defend other star players and how they've handled Jason Tatum is generally they've tried to force the ball out of Tatum's hands and let other guys beat him, whether it means Marcus Smart gets to shoot open threes, Al Horford gets to shoot open threes. It's generally been, we're going to hone in the defense on Jason Tatum and let other guys shoot. Now, last game, maybe it was game 5 because the series was tied, Jaylen Brown getting in foul trouble. We saw Tatum's usage jump all the way up to 39.4. So that is a promising sign for sure. But when I have to compare it to, I can't play everybody a ton on the high end, and I'd rather play Steph Curry and Giannis Antetokounmpo than I would play Jason Tatum. So I do end up coming underweight to the field on Tatum.
All right. Well, let's get into this mid-range here. Let me double check. Let me see. Yeah, we talked about Bobby Portis there. That was the super chat. That was the last one we had. Cool. Wanted to just make sure that the house was in order. Let's continue on. Al Horford talk. Oh, my Lord. Guy has been so good in these playoffs. There's no Robert Williams. He's playing the 5 again, but we just saw last time out, 41 minutes. He can still find ways to not shoot the ball phenomenally well. Only 4 for 7, 0 for 2 from 3. I'm not sure if that was a conscious choice where Milwaukee just said, all right, we were taking away a lot of Jason Tatum. Now we're going to take away Al Horford in this kind of a scenario. I expect him to take more than 7 shots in this game. I don't think many people would argue with that, but 7,200 Al Horford on DraftKings. Is that still something you're willing to pay the freight on?
Yeah, I think Al Horford, based on what we've seen this series, and I mean, it's a product of the playing time as much as anything. You mentioned 41 minutes last game, 42 minutes the game before. The other games in the series, 39, 37, 36 minutes. We also have to consider that Robert Williams is once again out for the Boston Celtics. So I feel pretty good in saying that barring foul trouble, we're getting 40 plus minutes out of Al Horford. And based on his permanent production, I think the 7,200 salary, as crazy as it seemed for Al Horford, because he's somebody who was considerably cheaper for most of the season, I'm still willing to pay $7,200 for him over on DraftKings. And then even on FanDuel, where he's $7,600, I think that's a playable salary as well.
I have 25% of him on FanDuel. I'm not going to go completely bonkers there. I'm holding hands with the field. Here's the thing. You don't have to make an aggressive stand on every single player. I'm not going to make an aggressive stand on Al Horford. I don't know how to get over 35% of him at that number at 7,200 when I get Klay Thompson for $100 less. There's just so much upside there, I think. And talk about the Golden State guys. I think that on FanDuel especially, they're going to stand out for me. Draymond Green is now down to 5,800. Oh my God, the Houston Astros are going completely berserk. Sorry, my random MLB Tourette's kicking in there. But Draymond Green, 5,800. Andrew Wiggins, 5,600. Bobby Portis, 5,200. I'd probably draw the line there. I definitely won't like him more. Draymond Green, though. How do you feel about Draymond compared to Dylan Brooks at 6K, compared to some of these other mid-range guys? Is Draymond Green somebody you're landing on for today's slate?
I love getting to Draymond Green today. So Draymond has been absolute shit in this series from a fantasy standpoint, like beyond a way that would even make sense. Draymond Green has scored less than 30 fantasy points in every single game in the series. The most he has scored is 27.5. But there's also been a lot of extenuating circumstances. One, he got ejected from a game. The other, so many of these games have been blowouts. Last game, blowout. The game before that was more competitive. He played 33 minutes. The game before that, blowout. So, like, you look at these games, and I understand that we've seen 5 games in this series, but almost all of them have some sort of asterisk when it comes to Draymond Green. And now we get him about as cheap as he's been the entire season at 5,800 on 5,800 on FanDuel, and on DraftKings we have Draymond Green at 5,800. Is he 5,800 on both sites? Or
yes,
am I? Yeah, okay. So 5,800 on both sites. I thought I was looking at it wrong, but
nope.
Yeah, so 5,800 on both sides for Draymond Green. This is as cheap as we could ever play him in a playoff scenario where we would expect reasonably for him to play more minutes than usual, barring a blowout, which, of course could happen. But I think the Grizzlies are undervalued by the books in this spot because, once again, Grizzlies without Ja Morant, they traditionally crush. So I would think this is a game that ultimately is played 4 or 5 points. The Warriors win out is probably more likely of an expectation than 8 or more. But that aside, I think this is going to be a competitive game. I think we see increased minutes from Draymond Green. We could buy low on him. And Eric, what's my theory been about ownership in this playoffs?
Oh, whatever we think it's going to be, whoever went off for the last game is going to be way more popular than what you think.
So Draymond's projected for a lot of ownership. He's projected to be 48% owned on DraftKings. He's projected to be 64% owned on FanDuel. I think he projects so well on a points per dollar basis that a lot of people are still going to get to him. Mm-hmm. But I think he probably ultimately lands a little bit underneath this just because recency bias has played such a big role in lineup construction.
Dillon Brooks, Desmond Bane. Desmond Bane, confirmed, did not look like your father walking around the house. For those who don't know that analogy, it's going to sound awkward, but Desmond Bane looked really, really hurt 2 games before. Looked pretty good to me in game 5. Looked pretty good to everybody. Limited minutes because of the blowout here, but him and Dillon Brooks, I think they're going to continue to be guys who get the green light, have the opportunity to chuck as much as they possibly want. How do you feel about those two on this slate?
Yeah, so, talk about another guy. Desmond Bane has been terrible for fantasy in this series. I don't think he's topped 30 fantasy points either, if I'm not mistaken. Desmond Bane last game scored 29 fantasy points. That's the most he's played the entire series. There are some positives to take away from that. First of all, the usage finally came back. Even if the fantasy production wasn't there, we finally saw Desmond Bane take shots, and that's something he just hasn't done at other points in the series. He's playing with a back injury. He's playing through it. He'd look a little more mobile last game. The minutes weren't there, but I think it's because they didn't have to be there. The final score of the game is 134-95. But I feel a little better playing Desmond Bane today than I have on other slates, just because I did think he looked physically to be a little bit better. I don't think we should expect his regular season production because I definitely still think he's hampered. But that aside, I think that he's at least worth having in the player pool today, where I've been pretty drastically underweight to him so far this series.
2 super chats. We have Deacon to the Legend, $4.99. Appreciate you per usual. What's up, fellas? Would you prioritize Antetokounmpo in a single entry on FanDuel? The $5. Thanks. Keep up the good work. We shall, Deacon. Greg, yes. I would not fade Giannis in a single entry.
Yes, prioritize Giannis in single entry on FanDuel.
Yeah, he's unfadable. Just let the other 38% not have him. Corey Palmer, $2. Thank you, Corey. Appreciate you. Wiggins and Brooks or JJJ and Connaughton?
Wiggins and Brooks or JJJ and Connaughton. I lean towards Wiggins and Brooks today. Because I just don't like Connaughton all that much. So there's 4 players in this conversation, and I like 3 of them a lot. Wiggins, Brooks, and Triple J. Connaughton less so. So I'll lean towards the Wiggins and Brooks side.
Yep, no problem with that whatsoever. I am lowest on Connaughton by far. I have 10% on DK. His ownership has been out of control at these numbers, but now he's up to 4,400. We'll see what happens. He was just 3,800 on previous slates. As I'm looking on DK, he was 3,800. We'll see what ends up happening today. Very curious because, once again, recency bias, our projections are the absolute best at giving you the range and giving you the opportunity to see exactly what's going to happen. But guess what? It's also a lot of human elements when we're talking about 2-game slates that a lot of public money is jumping into. Let's round out the forward discussion. Cheapies, who are your favorite guys sub 5K to roster at the forward spot? We talked about Porter. I assuming if he plays, we both have interest there, but who else might make your lineups?
Yeah, a lot of the Warriors guys here. I talked about liking Wiggins before in that 2v2 we got. Wiggins is somebody who I think warrants exposure, as does Draymond Green. It's just the prices are so cheap on these Warriors guys. Wiggins is 5,600. If you look at his production in this series, he scored 29 fantasy points, 33, 29, 38. I know last game sucked, but you know who else last game sucked for? Everybody else on the Warriors. So I can't put too much weight into what happened last game. Wiggins is priced down on DraftKings. I think he's worth getting to. And then even on FanDuel as well, a little bit more expensive, but it's a 6,000 price tag. So I think Wiggins and Draymond are both primary targets in the mid-range. As for other forward options, I like Dylan Brooks a lot, but I feel like we've already talked about him. There's going to be a lot of volatility when it comes to late swapping and the Otto Porter Jr. situation. But beyond him, I think we've talked about all the forwards so far. Is there anybody? Oh, you know who we should talk about? Kyle Anderson.
Oh, damn it. Kyle Anderson. If he goes nuts again today, Eric will be a sad child because I had been playing so much Kyle Anderson until that game where I was like, oh, he's going to be a little bit overowned, and I wanted to play more Melton and all that. He goes completely berserk. Melton plays like 3 minutes, whatever.
Anderson scored 28 fantasy points. He didn't really go berserk.
Well, last game, then he just got all the garbage time run. It was so tilting, and he was really, really popular. 38 and 28 the last two in 23 and 19 minutes.
Yeah.
If he plays 24 minutes and he puts up 30 fantasy points, I will just not. I'll just never show up here.
But I don't even know how you could project Kyle Anderson for 24 minutes. He legitimately went nuts 2 games ago and played 23 minutes.
Yeah,
I think it's way more reasonable he plays under 20 today, and he's not that good of a points per minute fantasy producer for me to project him well.
Well, guys, that's the forward spot. We'll talk centers here because I really want to talk centers, one guy specifically. But Cliff McKeo, $5 just because. We appreciate you. Thank you, Christopher Mercier. I'll get to that super chat here in a second because it'll lead us into our Adams discussion and into Looney. Ooh, buckle up, fam. But head to OddsShopper right now. That is going to be the spot where you find the best bets in 30 seconds or less. Greg and I are going to be talking about it half an hour like we always do after the show. Actually, no, the show just continues. The show must go on is the right way of putting it. And that's what Greg and I are going to do with the help of OddsShopper. We're going to be watching the game live. We're going to be breaking down what's going on there as well as some bets that we can get going for the Golden State Memphis game. But if you guys want to find some free bets, we're talking free 99. That's the best kind of 99. Head to OddsShopper right now. Sort by best projected ROI. If you have legalized betting in your state, yay. You can look at the top of the board and find some really quality bets, projections used by Awesemo, by Alex Baker, by Steve Buzzard, DeColts. We're talking the best guys in the industry using their data, putting it directly on the page for you and helping you win money. So head to OddsShopper right now, sort NBA bets. I see Brook Lopez, the over of 0.5. I know we talked about the ladder situation we had with Jaren Jackson Jr. You really like that. Anything else you want the people to know about this first game specifically, Greg, before we get to lock?
No, I mean, I gave out the bet I liked, which was my favorite long shot bet in the Milwaukee-Boston game is Drew Holiday 7-1 to score 30 plus points.
I absolutely love that. And I love the over of 3-pointers at Brook Lopez. I love where it's at too. BetMGM. Go use that promo code that bet $10, win $200. You get 4 free $50 bets using promo code LBL bets over there. So go to BetMGM. Literally the best prop on the entire board today is Brook Lopez, that specific prop, and the best line occurs over at BetMGM. That's going to be the sports book. They show you exactly where to go bet it. Take advantage of that now. And if you're like me in California or another state without legalized sports betting, we have Prize Picks. We can play those prop-based games. We have the parlay builder at the top of the page. Take advantage of that. So great. Check out everything that OddsShopper has to offer. All right, Greg, we got to round this out. A couple super chats to catch up on. Christopher Mercier, $5. Adams and Jay Brown or Draymond and Clay. I think this really comes down to how you view Adams on today's slate because we both like Brown, we both like Draymond, and I think we both like Clay. How do you feel about Steven Adams on today's slate?
Yeah, I think Adams is a really high priority play, but I like the Draymond and Clay combination better. So Draymond and Clay.
Yeah, I think it's like a true 50-50. Like you could not give me a 2v2 that I would slightly lean Adams, Jay Brown, but if you went Draymond Clay, I love both of those plays today. Thank you so much for the super chat. Let's go with that second combination. I'll ride with Greg on it. $4.99 from Roddy Piper as well. Appreciate you. The best. Yo, Eric, you playing Horford? David Traub, I'm holding hands with the field. I can't fade Horford. I don't want to.
Oh, there was he by the way, Roddy wanted to know what our thoughts were on Damian Lee. I'm not
there. We
playing
go.
him.
I'm not playing Damian Lee. I have 0 Damian Lee. I'm pretty sure.
And then
and Cliff asked us a super chat too. He wanted to know. Let's see if I could find
Connaughton and Anderson or Portis and Allen.
That is Portis and Allen for me.
Portis and Allen, because I'm not playing Connaughton and Anderson. Again, I know Rinpack really liked Pat Connaughton as well. I'm not going to be there 4,400. I think you'll probably end up a little bit over-owned. We shall see. We shall see. Rinpack's pretty good at this, though. So if you guys want to listen to him, I do not besmirch you on that. Like, that's my boy. I ride or die with him, but not on Pat Connaughton today. All right. Center time. Rest of the position. It's pretty simple for me because you can play Giannis, you can play Al Horford, you can play Jaren Jackson Jr., Draymond Green, Bobby Portis, all of them center eligible. There's no Robert Williams. Brook Lopez, kind of meh. I don't really know what to do with him. I have a little bit. I have 4% on DK. He's 7.7%. Do you have any Brook Lopez stance?
No, there just hasn't been any real upside there for him this year. I mean, I guess he had that one game where he scored 33 fantasy points, but in general for the playoffs, like a ceiling game for Brook Lopez by and large, and even in the regular season for that matter, we're very rarely getting more than like 25 or so fantasy points out of Brook Lopez. So maybe he just gets the extended minutes today, but based on what we've seen from playing time so far in the series, I don't really see a reason to expect. He only played 20 minutes last game, and it was a really close competitive game. It was a close tight game. The series was tied to it 2-2 at the time. So I don't think we're going to see enough minutes out of Brook Lopez to really have a reliable ceiling.
I'm with you. 3 minutes to go, and I want to get this take in here. Mm-hmm. If there's no Otto Porter, I'm going to play a lot of Kevon Looney. I'm going to do it. And I have a checkered history with this guy. 2 years ago, I thought he was the worst chalk that ever existed on like any slate. He was always starting for the Warriors. He was always like 3,300. And I kept looking at Greg thinking the field was insane. And you know what he never did? He never had a ceiling game. He never once had a ceiling game and burned me. And it was like playing rake free for an entire year. Yay. That was a lot of fun. Shout out 2020, actually not a confirmed fun year, but in certain situations this season, obviously we've had no Wiseman, we've had no Draymond Green in some of these spots. Kevon Looney, I've seen have more usage and more upside from time to time. We saw 19% usage 2 games ago against Memphis in that win, played pretty serviceable minutes in a backup role, has been playing a lot of this backup role, had been starting towards the tail end of the season, playing those very, very limited minutes as they were getting everybody acclimated. But I think he's the guy that probably benefits more than what anybody else is going to from the Golden State side if you have no Otto Porter. I know people say Kuminga, they might go other directions. I think Kevon Looney's my guy. Am I insane?
I mean, you're not insane, but I guess the follow-up would be, what are you going to do with him if Otto Porter's ruled in then?
Not play him.
Okay. Because I just think that's I think that's a fair follow-up with that as well, because if we're going to have, if we're going to tell people to play Looney, just know that's with the caveat of it's dependent on Otto Porter being out. Because I have some exposure to Looney right now, but it's a very limited amount. And it's just because there's a lot of studs on these playoff slates and the value is generally shit. And he's 3,300 and going to play minutes. Like we've seen spots where a guy could be 3,300, 3,200 in the playoffs, score 15, 16 fantasy points and land in an optimal lineup. So I don't have 0% of Looney, but I'm with you. I could see a path to there being more minutes for him if Porter's ruled out. Another thing too is, look at guys like Bjelica, Kuminga. I think they could both benefit if Porter doesn't play.
Yeah. I think they'll get attention already, and I think Looney will go by the wayside is kind of my hope. And I think Looney has a better path than I know in the second half that they started Bjelica, but they were already just in a massive, massive hole, and they were trying to do anything to claw out of it. And Bjelica didn't exactly set the world on fire. So I think it goes back to being a little bit more Kevon Looney. At least I hope so. Guys, we have reached lock. These are good times. I'm excited to be going through some of this. Greg, we're going to be firing this up, but first I have to ask you per usual, what time do these games start tonight? What is your official guess?
Well, is this TNT or ESPN?
Let's go with, that kind of gives you the answer, doesn't it?
But I mean, it's the
ESPN.
difference. So I mean, ESPN. We're going to be sitting here without a game starting for the next 15 minutes. The game's going to start like 7:45.
The bus stop, just sitting there waiting. It's coming. Nope, it's not coming. Okay. Yeah, it's going to be 15, 20 minutes. I'll go with 17 again. 17 was the correct answer. The 17-minute mark. So 47. 4:47 my time. 7:47 if you live in a normal person time zone with real time and a real world. California, you're insane. Oh my God. Let's go. Houston Astros completely lighting the world on fire. This is insanity.
Who are your do you have I like it. Tyler just put up, but that over under is too lofty. Like the game probably is going to start later.
Again, I get like Tyler, plus 400.
Take the poll down, put 744.
Yep. I love that number. 2 votes got in on the under. Everybody. Yeah, it was gonna be a landslide. The under. Again, I was doing it. I know I'm getting paid like plus 350 on my guess there.
Yeah. 744 though. I think that's a tight line.
It's a great line. And shame to your family if it's if you get it wrong. Shame to your family. I'm gonna take the over, obviously. Here we go. Very excited. Very, very excited. Greg, we got to do it because this could be the very last 2-game slate that we get for the entire NBA season. I don't think that anybody has really processed that until just now. I mean, that's pretty insane to think about, right?
I think we have different definitions of insane because, I mean, we knew this was going to happen at some point.
As we go on.
But yeah, so if the Celtics win today, then there is a 2-game slate on Sunday. And that would be the last one.
DK, anybody else, for whatever reason, on my desktop, I want to just ask Greg some ownership because it's fun. It's enjoyable. It's the very last 2-game slate we could get for the NBA season. Yes, Carlos Manzo, heartbroken. David Traub, can you write my 6-page final paper for you? No, I cannot do that. I will not do that. I refuse. But best of luck to you. I know those days, those were anxiety days. It is bittersweet. We got you. 80 Poker 89. Appreciate you too. But yeah, I'm just waiting for DK to fire up and we'll be able to play the game for maybe the very last time. Yes, that ownership. Woo!
Before we do, because the game might start, who are your picks to win the games tonight?
Bucks, Warriors. I'm chalky. I'm chalk donkey.
Celtics, Grizzlies.
Look at you, Mr. Contrarian. I like it for you because I know how much money you have wrapped up in the old Boston Celtics here tonight. I don't have nearly as much wrapped up in the Bucks, but I do have some futures on the Bucks, so I'd be all right with it. I have the game I'm the most interested in tomorrow is now that Dallas game where I have a +3. I basically have a money line +350 and a money line +1200 Dallas ticket because I bet them when they were down 0-1 and down 0-2. So I basically have money line bets going into those ones. Dallas will be the team I'm cheering for. I don't think I'm not going to hedge out on 1,500. I'm just going to let it ride, I think. I mean, I just want to see it happen.
Well, so what the other thing too that I'm really hoping for is, so personally, I have the Celtics favored today. I think the Celtics should be favored in this game, but I've also been really high on the Celtics all season. But what I'm hoping for is the Celtics obviously to win tonight for personal reasons, but then in the next game, because I haven't hedged any of my Celtics bets yet. And obviously if they lose today, then I just lose all the bets I have on them. But if they win today, I have a really good middle opportunity because the Celtics are most likely going to be 5.5-point favorites at home in game 7.
Yeah.
By the way, for Michael Applegate, I have the Celtics 60-1 to win the championship and 27-1 to win the Eastern Conference.
Yeah. Jojo Pukey, yeah, +1200. I have a group chat with some buddies and they just were being nice human beings and, showed mercy on a guy who was just like, hey, I want to bet a team that's down 0-2. What can I get out of this situation? Which, ends up working out. Again, BetMGM, I'm telling you right now, y'all, take advantage of this offer in your own illegal state. Because again, you can just basically get 4 free bets to be able to join Greg and I. You could bet Boston tonight. Try to get some plus money on the money line in that direction. You make any money line bet, $10, you'll get that $200. That is LBL Bets. Don't forget about that. Want to give them one more shout out. Plus, Awesemo best bets. As we are waiting for this ownership to show up for me here in the $20 on DK on my side of the screen, we have Kyle Anderson under 8.5 points. That is from Steve Buzzard himself. I love the confidence coming from Steve Buzzard there at Awesemo best bets. That is a glimpse of everything we have for our premium betting picks package that is available here at Awesemo in the premium Discord. I'm telling you, it's going to pay for itself over the long run. Sign up, join that best bets Discord, and win some cash. Kyle Anderson under 8.5 minus 125 at DK. That is the free bet of the day from our guide to Colts. All right. Ready to go, Greg?
Let's do it.
Drew Holiday.
Drew Holiday has to be really popular. And he was, I'll just say 50%. That's where we had him projected. But it's hard for me to imagine he's going to be like 70 or anything.
53.4%.
Yep. Makes sense. He's underpriced and he's been, mediocre during this series. He's right where he was projected.
Giannis and Antetokounmpo.
Also 50%.
58% for Giannis.
All right. I'm under. I mean, I thought I was under on Giannis as is now, because I think I ended up with around 40% Giannis.
Derek White.
So Derek White ended up being less popular in his ownership projection last game. He was decent, though. Well, if Giannis is more popular than expected, Derek White probably has to be more popular than expected because where else were people getting the value from? You and I like Otto Porter. I think people probably avoided him as a value play in the late game. So I don't know, 60% Derek White?
47.6%. This is the $20 here at TK. Again, I'm flatlining. I'm acting up a storm over here, giving you no inflection, giving you the poker face.
Well, I didn't pick that based on, I picked that based on Giannis's ownership.
Oh, okay. Well, there's that too. I'm just giving you nothing. Al Horford.
Right. People loved rostering Al Horford this series, 40%.
31.8%. That's the lowest we've had on Big Al. Tell you what, recency bias confirmed a thing.
Well, last game was his worst fantasy performance of the series. That's also one that's kind of hard is how much are people valuing that Al Horford was good for me 3 of the last 4 games, but wasn't as good last game. I think I have to go back to just like, I only consider what happened the last game. People forget everything else existed.
Dude, our ownership is so effing on today. I'm just comparing some stuff. Pat Connaughton. 25%. 21.6%. I was going to say, that was one of the things I thought I was kind of hoping it was going to be like 25. We had projected around 18.4 to be within 3% on Connaughton is pretty sharp. Like that's pretty sick. Did we do Jaylen Brown?
We have not done Jaylen Brown.
So
Jaylen Brown's ownership is going to be suppressed just because he was in foul trouble the last 2 games. He should be more popular, but he's not going to be. So 25%.
I just had him and I just lost him. Where'd he go? Hold up. God. Just give me the
Do you remember
answer.
how popular was at the same price after he hit all of his shots in game 1?
Very popular. God, he just disappeared. It was like 31-ish%. I think it was like 31%. So forgive me. I, for whatever reason, cannot find somebody. 0.9% Peyton Pritchard. That's hilarious to me. I just had it. 31.8%. There we go.
Okay.
Found it. Being slower to load for me. Grayson Allen.
I forget, was Grayson Allen good last game?
No.
Let's see. Let me check. I'm just looking at his. No. So yeah, Grayson Allen. Okay. So 25% for Grayson Allen.
21.9%.
All right. Yep.
So a little bit less popular. Maybe some positive leverage. Maybe he wouldn't just automatically kill Grayson Allen in this scenario.
I mean, we still do on principle.
Again, it's on principle, baby.
Yeah.
How about this one? Grant Williams.
All right. So Grant Williams can't be popular because he really sucked last game. 10%.
7.7%.
Yeah. You know, it's also funny. Some of these, do you remember? So
we had him projected for 8.8. God, our ownership
but
could not have been better today.
But the other thing too, do you remember Grant Williams is in the exact same situation 2 games ago with Robert Williams out, and he just shot the ball better, and he was like 40% owned or 35% owned. He stopped shooting the ball as well, and people get off him. If you liked him those other slates, you should like him this slate as well.
He played 31 minutes and went 0 for 3 from the floor and put up 3 fantasy points, but literally nothing changed other than he didn't shoot the ball. He was 7 for 14. What changed was he's $600 more expensive, but compared to the last slate, he was like north of 20%, and now he's 7.7. I think you want to be north of that if you're playing 150, that's for sure. Daniel Tice.
He hasn't been good in this series, but
Won our guy 8-game 100K over on FanDuel.
5%.
5%. 3.9%.
Okay.
Wesley Matthews.
10%.
21.6%.
Whoa, that's a really
welcome to the chasing points team. Let's go, Wes Matthews truthers. Remember last slate when I was just like, oh, I would love to be over on 5% Wes Matthews if you told me he was going to be 5%. And then he has a great game at that number. I mean, I wasn't like, I think I had like 5% actually, but then he's 21.6% with a slight price bump, $200 more. He played 37 minutes and went 3 for 6 from 3 and had 7 rebounds. He will never have 7 rebounds again the rest of his career.
Probably not. That's very point chasey. But at the same time, too, he hits a couple of threes. He could put up 15, 16 fantasy points and be okay. I didn't really roster him, but I could see why people did.
All right. I wouldn't. So we have a super chat, but I want to say this one first. Dirty Dan XD, Eric Lindquist, thoughts on the Minnesota Vikings schedule? All right. I haven't done any football content yet. I haven't done any, but I've been paying attention because I crushed the NFL draft. I'm going to crush these futures. And there's one future that everybody in chat, if you're watching right now, you have to sprint to the window to go bet. You have to sprint to the window to go bet this. It is the Chicago Bears win total under 6.5. If it's available still at 6.5, you need to fire everything you possibly can on the under of that. They are only scheduled. So they have a Houston Texans game that's on their schedule, which is a winnable one. But they are basically only 3-point favorites at home in week 3 against the Texans. They are going to be dogs in every single game they play other than that game the entire season. The Lions are much improved. The Vikings are decent enough. I really have no pull on 9. I don't really want to take any kind of a number over 8.5 or whatever that number was that they were at. Don't feel good about it. But the under of 6.5 for the Bears, they trade away Khalil Mack. They're going to have to start some garbage quarterback, especially if it's Justin Fields. They are abysmal. No Allen Robinson, whatever you do, the under of 6.5 for the Bears is a joke. Slam it, slam it, slam it.
By the way, has the game started?
No.
All right. I'm just looking. About the 6.5 is the number on
Take the over. Take the over.
Yeah, that was why I asked, because we're right at 7:44. So in terms of the Bears, the Bears number, I wanted to add the Vikings things. You brought it up because this was posted. I can't remember if you had texted us in our group chat about it, but somebody put the DraftKings a tweet about somebody bet $10,000 on over 9 wins for the Minnesota Vikings. Drove me crazy yesterday. Just because whatever, it's not even the bet. Like, I don't care that somebody bet on the Vikings. I'm unopinionated on their win total. Here's what really, really annoyed me is that somebody put, a somewhat decent, like put a sizable bet on something and didn't take the best number. You could get the Minnesota Vikings over 8.5 wins, and he bet 9 and just found the book that has the worst line on it. Mm-hmm. It drove me crazy. Use OddsShopper and find the best available line whenever you're betting anywhere. Like, why would you ever bet over 9 when you could bet over 8.5? It's the dumbest shit.
So tell me how you really feel. But it's true. It's the worst thing I've ever seen.
And I could see this being like a really indignant fan too, who's just like, I'm this confident in the Vikings, I'm going to take the worst line possible. It's just terrible logic. It's the worst way to sports bet.
Whatever. I have very strong opinions when it comes to this Bears team. This Bears team is going to be so #bad. It's unbelievable. You need to just 6.5. I know it's a 17-game season now. They have to go 7-10. There is not a chance in God's green earth. Like there's not. The Lions are much improved. Packers and Vikings in the division. It would take so many wonky, unbelievable things to happen. It would have to happen to the Vikings or Packers. Like to be able to rattle off two of those, either Cousins or Rodgers gets hurt. I just don't see I don't see them winning 5 games. I don't see where they are on the schedule. They are at home. Like, what would you say home field advantage is in the NFL? 2-3 points?
It's 2.5.
Okay, so 2.5. They're only 3-point favorites against Houston at home in week 3.
And then so here's a good comparison point. So that would mean, based on that logic, the Houston Texans, and obviously this isn't going to be exact because it's going to depend on strength of schedule and whatnot, but more or less, the Texans should have the same win total as the Bears then. Unless one team's schedule is far easier or harder, if the Bears are 2.5-point favorites at home against the Texans, that's what you said the line is. You said the line is 2.5?
Yeah, 2.5.
Okay, so then they should have the exact same win total. And, oh my God. Do you know what the Texans win total is?
4.
So I just pulled up FanDuel and they have it at 3.5.
3.5? Okay. I just guessed. I hadn't looked at that, but all I know is that they are 3-point favorites against the Texans. And as soon as I saw that, I just jammed. I mean, I'm shorting the Bears in such an unbelievable way this year. It's incredible.
Just based on what I looked at, and by the way, this is like really shoddy research and really shoddy line shopping.
I've been looking at this for like 2 days. Well, since the schedules came out,
but
I've just
based on the idea that the betting line indicates the Bears and the Texans are totally even teams. The Bears team total is 6.5. The Texans is 3.5. That makes a whole lot of sense just looking at that. So by the way, the game ended up starting right at 7:47. So it appears Tyler put up a good line to begin with, but there is an asterisk here. Do you know why the game started late?
Was there somebody on the court?
There was a tech issue and the shot clock's not working.
I'm switching my Kuminga pick to Looney. I hope you're right, Eric. Only if Otto Porter's out, by the way. Only if Otto Porter's out. Huge caveat to that.
If Otto Porter plays, we're playing Otto Porter.
Yeah. Porter. Hey, Porter.
And we're just crossing his fingers that his foot doesn't still have a boo-boo.
I'm going to double down. Under 6.5 for the Bears, man. This schedule isn't even that hard. It's just how abysmal I think the Bears are going to be. Did you see anything competent out of Justin Fields last year?
No, but we rarely do out of rookie quarterbacks.
What did their offense do to help him improve?
I have not followed enough football in the offseason to know.
Nothing.
Like, I have no clue. I'll take your word for it. I don't know.
They took a corner. They had no first-round picks. They took Kyler Gordon, a quarterback, in the second round with the 7th pick of the second round. Took a safety. They took Vallis Jones Jr. in the 3rd round, wide receiver. I don't know if anybody noticed, but like 35,000 wide receivers went before that, so he can't be very good. Braxton Jones didn't get another guy until Treston. Oh, Jordan Alvarez just went yard. My eyes don't batter. This is just a beautiful day to be alive. Baseball Tourette's.
When it comes to the 6-0 Astros here in the 3rd inning, when it comes to basketball games, do you care who the refs are? I know I've talked about the officiating
season.
Because I know I've talked about the officiating. I think it's the most overvalued thing we have in sports. People go nuts about who the refs are in the game, after the game, what call. And coincidentally, I've never seen somebody say they benefited from a call. Never seen it before on Twitter. I've seen 10 million takes on referees. Nobody's ever said I really benefited from these refs. It's always the refs are against them. I think that people watch sporting events so biased through the rooting interest that they think every call that happens just goes against them. Do you care at all who the refs are for these games? Like, people made a really big deal that Scott Foster was reffing this game, and then that Scott Foster tested positive for COVID and was pulled out. I just think, you know who I think is going to win tonight, Eric? The best team. Whoever plays best is going to win, regardless of who the refs are. Do you care that Scott Foster is? Or
I thought both teams played pretty well last game, and it came down to one play. Bobby Portis got a rebound. Like, Giannis goes to the line shooting 2, down 2. He gets the rebound on the second one after Giannis makes the first. In a fluky bounce, the ball bounces off the side of the rim, backboard, goes over Jaylen Brown. Smart runs into Jaylen Brown, and it falls directly to Bobby Portis, and he puts it back in. Like, it took a fluky thing. Either team could have won last game. It was like a true coin flip. I think this entire series has been a true coin flip. I think if you had just been betting money lines for the dog, you probably are up money in this series because, you know, you would have had 2 road games where you would have had plus money behind it and had an opportunity to win both of those. I feel pretty confident that, like, Scott Foster is a pretty terrible referee, and you and I have a difference of opinion because I do think officiating has way too much bearing in sports. I watch some pitchers. The biggest tilt for me is when you're watching an umpire just has no concept of the zone, like absolutely no concept of accountability. They literally can call whatever they want at any given moment. A called strike can be, you know, one thing for one batter, another thing for another. That's what drives me nuts. In NBA, for the most part, because of replay, at least at the end of the game, when things are really crunched down, you at least have some of that stuff that's taken out of the equation. Like, referees don't have as much say, but yeah, Scott Foster's awful. He's indisputably a terrible basketball referee.
Well, so do you know where somewhere somebody keeps referee stats? Here we go.
There's a Twitter
it is Dennis
account
Carnicaris. We've got 2 things. Producer Ty, member for 13 months. Thoughts on the Aggies to win the SEC? Stop it. Get help. Stop it.
We're winning it.
Stop it.
Dude,
Tyler
we're winning
Zander.
it.
Manny C. NAG. I got to get the super chat in here. Who's looking at us over your shoulder? I'm familiar with Tyler's at, but who is it? We appreciate you both. Much love, gents. Fortune and glory, gents. Manny C. We appreciate you. But who's looking at us over your shoulder? That is my high school yearbook photo. That's my high school senior pictures.
Yeah. Which, of course, I hang that up in my office because why would I not have that in my office?
Yeah, it's just, you know, 17-year-old Eric Lindquist, bushy-eyed, furry-tailed. I don't know the saying. Bushy-tailed, furry, whatever the hell. Just
by the way, you want to hear something funny?
A dream, sure.
So there's a stat that a site that tracks referees called NBA Stuffer, and basically it's hard to really come up with referee stats, but the way they do it is how much a referee's influenced by the crowd, and then it's how often do they call more fouls for the home team versus the away team, and the logic being that a totally neutral ref calls an even amount of fouls for both teams.
Okay.
Who do you think? But we only know one ref. Anyway, Scott Foster rates out as the worst ref in the NBA by this rating.
It's indisputable. He's the worst referee. He's biased. He actively is aggressive towards players. He's quick with the trigger. No tolerance. He's everything you want out of an NBA official. He is not. He's just bad at his job. And the labor unions of these NBA and MLB teams, they could solve the world's problems, because the fact that these guys still have jobs is just beyond me. Like Angel Hernandez, how does he have a job? How?
He's retired now. Isn't he retired after this year? He retires.
Oh, maybe he does. No,
okay. I thought he retired after this year.
That Phillies game, Kyle Schwarber, I thought was going to just take his bat and take him out.
Joe West. It was Joe West.
Joe West. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's,
okay.
Hashtag not good. 9-4 Boston. Good start for Greg Ehrenberg.
By the way, one other thing I'm going to add on the reffing, like 95% of the refs by this metric are very, very good refs. Almost all of them are neutral. There's very few outlier refs. Scott Foster just happens to be one of them. But by and large part, almost all of the refs are calling like within a foul of home or away on average over the course of the season, dead even. Scott Foster calls 57% of his fouls against the home team and 42% against the road team.
Interesting. Well, good start here regardless for your Celtics. 9-5 in the early going of this one. Giannis at the line made the first. We shall keep watching here, but let's head on over to Odd Shopper to round all of this together. It's been a fun half hour. Again.
Eric,
I didn't know that I was
hit-
going to go on my Bears rant, but I needed to have it. What's up?
Before we
Super
hit
chat.
the super
Yeah,
chat.
Dennis
I
is
just
super
sent you a
chat.
message. No,
Dennis
Ryan
Carter-Karras.
also. Ryan also sent one. I sent it in Slack for you to read off. It got mixed up in the other ones
what
earlier.
a lovely person. All right, I didn't see it here. Let me pull it up. I've got Tyler Zander keeping us accountable over here. So for a FanDuel GPP, my friend Greg Ehrenberg, FanDuel, Curry, Otto Slow-Mo, or Melton Brooks JJJ. I think this is under the assumption that Otto Porter is playing, and Curry, Otto Slow-Mo, or Melton Brooks and Triple J.
Yeah, that is Melton Brooks and Triple J for me.
I think regardless of Porter playing, it is for me too. Down with you, Slow-Mo. Down with the sickness. Last super chat, Dennis Carter-Karras, $2 with an A in front of it. I don't know what denomination that is. I don't know what currency it is.
Australian money.
Oh, good day, mate. Put another shrimp on the barbie. Austrian.
Yeah, more Australian. Talk about kangaroos.
Oh, little baby Joey hopping in me pouchy.
I think I like my baby.
How about Fosters? Like
It's Australian. They don't even have Fosters. I learned that from my Australian buddy who ran cross country at Iowa State. Shout out, whatever. But anyway, he said that they don't drink Fosters in Australia. Not a thing.
Well, the commercials told me that it's Australian for beer. You know, it's actually probably Australian for
Advertisers
beer.
lying to us. Shocking.
You know, it's probably Australian for beer because they speak English also. It's the same word. It's like, they're like, oh, look, Foster. No, they call it beer.
It's a good bit. Put that in the stand-up. Dennis, though, Bears plus 115 for under 6.5 wins. Book it. My God. I'm telling you right now, I can't think of something that I will take a stronger stand on the rest of the year than that.
Do you know what percentage of the Bucks points Giannis Antetokounmpo has scored so far?
I'll say 80% based on
100%. He has scored every single point for them so far. He also has a personal foul, though. If he gets into foul trouble, they are screwed.
Brook Lopez,
also, by the way,
80%.
Grant Williams in early foul trouble. Derek White checks in place of him. So Derek White looking like the
nuts.
So, all right. So at least the good news for us is I thought I was going way underweight on Derek White, but he was lower owned than we thought. So at least it's not too problematic. Oh, somebody else scored. Who scored? Brook Lopez hit a shot. He's on the board. Our Drew Holiday exposure isn't looking great right now.
It's not great. Tyus Jones looks like on Odd Shopper. He's the guy over 3.5 rebounds, minus 105. I think he's going to play a lot. I like Tyus Jones in all facets. That's going to have a 64% win percentage, just on the threshold of playable for me over on Prize Picks. 24% expected ROI. What has an even better play for Prize Picks? Tyus Jones under 2.5 3-pointers, 72% expected win percentage. So for betting purposes, I like the over on rebounds 3.5, but for Prize Picks purposes, I like the under of 2.5 threes for Tyus Jones. Greg, what is your favorite bet from the Grizzlies Warriors game to round out the show?
Jaren Jackson Jr. over 17.5 points.
Let's ride with that.
Not even though, because we've talked about Jaren Jackson Jr. There's such a wide range of outcomes with his scoring and his ability to stay on the court that I'd rather take his alternate lines than just the standard lines. So let's see. I want to see where these are at right now, if they've moved.
By the way,
Jaren Jackson Jr., where is he at for over?
Well, on
all right, how about this?
Just type it in.
Plus 140 for Jaren Jackson Jr. for over 19.5 points.
I can get behind that. I can get down with the sickness on that. He's going to play a lot. And foul trouble can definitely be something. Looks like it's not even bettable, really, according to Odd Shopper. So it's one of those things with the alternate line. I am behind you in that regard. I think that we definitely want to be looking at that. We're going to be watching our baseball. We're going to be watching our basketball. So much stuff to get to. We'll be picking up with all the content again tomorrow. Marcus Smart, a decent start too. 6-1-1.
We had one more super chat before we leave.
S. McGee, $4.99. To round out the show, would you guys put your brains together and give chat your top 3 flash draft picks for the third quarter? Not going to hold it against you, just for fun. All right, flash draft picks for the third quarter. I don't even know where to get a flash draft from. I don't know what it would be for. Go ahead.
So DraftKings does live fantasy drafts where you can just draft teams and play like head-to-heads and stuff as it goes on. Here's the issue. I cannot play flash draft in New Jersey. For whatever reason, it's one of those things that's banned here. So I do not know the ins and outs of it, but I would assume it's just whoever we projected the best for this game. So the top 3 flash draft picks for me would be Giannis 1, Tatum 2, Drew Holiday 3 for the third quarter. We're just looking up the starters we project the highest.
Yeah, the reason I say I don't know is because flash draft, you don't know what the lines are until you start the draft. You don't know what the questions are. Everybody starts at that exact moment. So there's no opportunity to know what the questions are going to be ahead of time. All I know is that I try to correlate my flash drafts, whether that's right, whether that's wrong. I always try to remember, because once you've made a stand on one player, if the player appears again, I probably want that player to succeed in some capacity. So I'll just stack up my lineups in that kind of a direction, try to correlate them. If there's somebody that I didn't select previously and then they're like 2x on the next slide, I'll just be shorting them, hoping nothing bad happens in that direction. But we made it. We're at the end of the boarding walk. Tyler Zander, amazing job today, per usual. He had Greg literally
Ehrenberg.
His Aaroness, Ehrenberg. Like
Ehrenberg, but air. It's clever. Greg Ehrenberg. I don't know if you meant to. Did you mean to do it that way, Tyler? Or
he did.
Okay. All right. I'll give you credit.
Well, he's edgy Ehrenberg DFS. That's Greg Ehrenberg. Any final words for the people as we get out of here?
Nope. As for I don't know how those flash drafts work, but apparently we don't even know what the lines are going to be for the third quarter yet anyway.
Nope. No idea, but best of luck. S. McG, if you have any questions, if anything specifically, if there's something specific, hit us up. Always happy to answer. I'm hanging out the Twitter, so that's what happens. But I'm going to go celebrate my 6-month anniversary, wedding anniversary. Ooh. Look what I did. Get a night away from the doggy. It'll be an awfully nice time. Gonna go have some fun. She doesn't know what we're doing. I know what we're doing because I'm romantic. So there you go. Get out of here. Have a great weekend. Best of luck here on the slate. Thank you, Tyler. Thank you, Greg. Don't give me that look, Tyler. Don't give that to me.
Enjoy Taco Bell. Enjoy Eric and Melanie. Enjoy Taco Bell.
7-Eleven. Get it right.
Yeah.